dreams, I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks, doing hard time for these WikiLeaks, trying to bring the truth out. Man, it only gets you heat, and then they gag you. You don't get to speak, and when you get the leak, they try to hit delete. The masses of the masses, they want the shit discreet. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Free speech, it's the freedom of press. Take your deepest, darkest secrets, never leave them unsaid. If I'm a thief, then I'm a thief for the people you dread. The people of the red, white and blue, you keep them in bed. Seeing the sheep, keep them asleep, deceiving the weak. Keep seeking the leaks till you cease, and I see your defeat. Until I'm deceased underneath a freezing red sheet. Become a dead man, then I hit the switch and release. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. Stories axed by the editor, you kill the messenger. Pay to play on the regular, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. And outside my window a figure quickly creeps. They dark as night like some motherfucking chimney sweeps. Whiskey with my Mickey keeps dying in my kidneys weak. Silence of my risky tweets is what the grand jury seeks. I'm wanting peace like 7 years in Tibet. Now rest in peace like 7 years under threat. Cause I've released 7 vaults, they upset. They ended the rape sentence, but the US still insists to rest. I guess it's a sin to take the truth and disseminate. MLK to Gandhi, take aim and eliminate. And I don't say I'm great, just wanna say what's fake. But if they kill me, a million others will take my place. The CIA's post like a knife the sharpest. All hypocrisy, lies, and heartless. They want to stop me, my life make my heart quit. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. Stories axed by the editor, you kill the messenger. Pay to play on the regular, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. When the vote count is irregular, you kill the messenger. You caught spying on a senator, you kill the messenger. Removing voters from the register, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. Dreams, I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks, doing hard time for these WikiLeaks, trying to bring the truth out. Man, it only gets you heat, and then they gag you. You don't get to speak, and when you get the leak, they try to hit the leak. The masses of the masses, they want this shit to street. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Playing on the regular, you kill the messenger. Free speech is the freedom of press. Take your deepest, darkest secrets, never leave them unsaid. If I'm a thief, then I'm a thief for the people you dread. The people want the red, white and blue, you keep them in bed. Seeking the sheep, keep them asleep, deceiving the weak. Keep seeking the leaks till you cease, and I see your defeat. Until I'm deceased underneath a freezing red sheet. Become a dead man, then I hit the switch and release. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. a figure quickly creeps. They dark as night like some motherfucking chimney sweeps. Whiskey what my Mickey keeps, dying in my kidneys weak. Silence of my risky tweets, what the grand jury seeks. I'm wanting peace, like 7 years in Tibet. Now rest in peace, like 7 years under threat. Cause I've released 7 vaults, they upset, they ended the rape sentence. But the US still insists to rest. I guess it's a sin to take the truth and disseminate. MLK to Gandhi, take him and eliminate. And I don't say I'm great, just wanna say what's fake. But if they kill me, a million others will take my place. The CIA's post like a knife the sharpest. All hypocrisy, lies, and heartless. They want to stop me, my life make my heart quit. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. You kill the messenger. You kill the messenger. Democracy dies in the darkness. Darkness. Feeling cold now, but got the heater on. Feeling sold out, even though I'm keeping strong. But can I hold out when every bit of freedom's gone? They want me rolled out, never to sing freedom song. I wanna see the sky, I wanna feel the rain. But gotta keep away from windows, that's some window pane. It's just a shame, couldn't have planned out all our dreams. Now I scream, cause there's a man in the machine. But the train is off the tracks, and damn it's losing steam. I wanna call Christine, I haven't seen since 013. I'm missing life like 3 strikes each night. Seems like 3 nights ain't right. Can't fight, space light, hate life. Wanting to be snake-like, shedding off this gray life. In the dark can't make light, but where I'm headed now is brake lights. Where I'm headed now they break lights. Counting days like brake lights, feeling weight like brake lights. Had a great life, brake lights, brake lights, brake lights. Out of place like brake lights, in my face like brake lights. Counting days like brake lights, brake lights, brake lights. Sit here asking, what have I done? If these strings were cut, I'd see my son. And if I could just fly from this place, then I'd hold you in my love embrace. And if I could just speak to you now, I'd renew my vow and be in the now. Is this me in denial? Wanna remove stress from your brow and pay you back some way, somehow. But it's painted black, can see the way back now. But how's the house and how's your mom? I doubt the way the media portrays me makes you hate me. But to think you see that daily makes me crazy, that just ain't me.
This is without a doubt going to be this generation's Free Mandela movement. Every single generation must fight again the same battles that previous generations have fought.
Brake lights, count days like brake lights, 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 brake lights. dreams, I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks, doing hard time for these WikiLeaks, trying to bring the truth out. Man, it only gets you heat, and then they gag you. You don't get to speak, and when you get the leak, they try to hit delete. The masses of the masses, they want the shit discreet. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Free speech, it's the freedom of press. Take your deepest, darkest secrets, never leave them unsaid. If I'm a thief, then I'm a thief for the people you dread. The people of the red, white and blue, you keep them in bed. Seeing the sheep, keep them asleep, deceiving the weak. Keep seeking the leaks till you cease, and I see your defeat. Until I'm deceased underneath a freezing red sheet. Become a dead man, then I hit the switch and release. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. Stories axed by the editor, you kill the messenger. Pay to play on the regular, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. And outside my window a figure quickly creeps. They dark as night like some motherfucking chimney sweeps. Whiskey what my Mickey keeps, dying in my kidneys weak. Silence of my risky tweets is what the grand jury seeks. I'm wanting peace like 7 years in Tibet. Now rest in peace like 7 years under threat. Cause I've released 7 vaults, they upset. They ended the rape sentence, but the US still insists to rest. I guess it's a sin to take the truth and disseminate. MLK to Gandhi, take aim and eliminate. And I don't say I'm great, just wanna say what's fake. But if they kill me, a million others will take my place. The CIA's post like a knife the sharpest. All hypocrisy, lies, and heartless. They want to stop me, my life make my heart quit. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. Stories axed by the editor, you kill the messenger. Pay to play on the regular, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. When the vote count is irregular, you kill the messenger. You caught spying on a senator, you kill the messenger. Removing voters from the register, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. In my dreams, I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks, doing hard time for these WikiLeaks, trying to bring the truth out. Man, it only gets you heat, and then they gag you. You don't get to speak, and when you get the leak, they try to hit delete. The masses of the masses, they want the shit to street. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Playing on the regular, you kill the messenger. Free speech is the freedom of press. Take your deepest, darkest secrets, never leave them unsaid. If I'm a thief, then I'm a thief for the people you dread. The people want the red, white and blue, you keep them in bed. Seeking the sheep, keep them asleep, deceiving the weak. Keep seeking the leaks till you cease, and I see your defeat. Until I'm deceased underneath a freezing red sheet. Become a dead man, then I hit the switch and release. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. And outside my window a figure quickly creeps. They dark as night like some motherfucking chimney sweeps. Whiskey what my Mickey keeps, dying in my kidneys weak. Silence of my risky tweets, what the grand jury seeks. I'm wanting peace, like 7 years in Tibet. Now rest in peace, like 7 years under threat. Cause I've released 7 vaults, they upset. They ended the rape sentence, but the US still insists to rest. I guess it's a sin to take the truth and disseminate. MLK to Gandhi, take him and eliminate. And I don't say I'm great, just wanna say what's fake. But if they kill me, a million others will take my place. The CIA's post like a knife the sharpest. All hypocrisy, lies, and heartless. They want to stop me, my life make my heart quit. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. You kill the messenger. You kill the messenger. Democracy dies in the darkness. Darkness.
Feeling cold now, but got the heater on. Feeling sold out, even though I'm keeping strong. But can I hold out when every bit of freedom's gone? They want me rolled out, never to sing freedom song. I wanna see the sky, I wanna feel the rain. But gotta keep away from windows, that's some window pane. It's just a shame, couldn't have planned out all our dreams. Now I scream. Cause there's a man in the machine, but the train is off the tracks, and damn, it's losing steam. I wanna call Christine, I haven't seen since 013. I'm missing life like 3 strikes each night. Seems like 3 nights ain't right. Can't fight, space light, hate life. Wanting to be snake-like, shedding off this gray life. In the dark, can't make light. But where I'm headed now is brake lights. Where I'm headed now, they break lights. Counting days like brake lights, feeling weight like brake lights. Had a great life, brake lights, brake lights, brake lights. Out of place like brake lights, in my face like brake lights. Counting days like brake lights, brake lights, brake lights. Sit here asking, what have I done? If these strings were cut, I'd see my son. And if I could just fly from this place, then I'd hold you in my love embrace. And if I could just speak to you now, I'd renew my vow and be in the now. Is this me in denial? Wanna remove stress from your brow and pay you back some way, somehow. But it's painted black, can see the way back now. But how's the house and how's your mom? I doubt the way the media portrays me makes you hate me. But to think you see that daily makes me crazy, that just ain't me.
This is without a doubt going to be this generation's Free Mandela movement. Every single generation must fight again the same battles that previous generations have fought.
Brake lights, counting days like brake lights, 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 brake lights.
know in chat if you can hear me. My name is Suzie Dawson. I am a journalist and activist and the leader of the Internet Party of New Zealand. I'm also the organiser of the Unity for J movement in solidarity with Julian Assange. I don't think the live chat is caught up yet, but I can see people in Zoom saying that they can hear me, so that's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It was so amazing to see how many of you had logged on, like even before we started the stream. It's really incredible. I just want to let you know, please, that the join link, the official join link for the stream tonight. Hi everyone. Everyone's saying hello to me in chat. The official join link for tonight is unityforj.com/stream, and that will take you to the Unity for J YouTube account, not to be confused with the Suzie 3D YouTube account, which I think somehow, maybe because I have a larger number of subscribers, there's a lot more watchers on my account. We're also streaming live on Periscope tonight and on the Unity for J Facebook page and the Internet Party Facebook page and possibly some others. We're all over the place. So please send your tweets, your questions, either in the YouTube chat, tag me and the guys will compile it in the restream, or to #Unity4J on Twitter. So I'll just start off. I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is that Julian is still in the embassy. He has not been evicted. The bad news is that he is still hurting and he is still suffering and he is still being politically persecuted. And so that's what we need to keep in mind, because as fun as it is putting together all the cool stuff we have been doing and hanging out with each other and doing these streams, I'm still really, really cognizant of the fact that Julian is still in the embassy hurting every single day. He is still silenced and unable to speak. And we collectively are becoming his voice while he is silenced. So this movement has been an amazing ride so far across the last 4 weeks. We have grown exponentially beyond our wildest dreams, but we are still at the very beginning of this journey and there is a long way to go. So we're going to have some really special friends join us for a chat a bit later. I can see some of them are already joining the Zoom now. But first, I'm going to have a little chat with you guys about how the movement operates, what it is that we're doing, and particularly how you can get involved. So what I've noticed over the last couple of weeks is that some aspects of what we're doing have been really successful and are working like clockwork. I barely even have to touch them. People are doing an amazing job at supporting each other and they're getting a lot of work done. And then there are other areas of the movement that need a lot more assistance and a lot more help. So I wanted to give a really transparent view to you guys of what the state of the Unity for J movement is, so that we can all look at the areas that we need to improve and we need to develop in the coming times. So I'll start off just talking a little bit about the Discord. Oh, Joe. Sorry, guys, bear with me 2 minutes. Me?
I'm here, you're live.
Cool, yay, I'm so sorry, bear with me. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is talk about the Discord server like as a solution, which is obviously what we're currently using. So it is, it's great in that it's allowed us to collaborate and get started on this movement, but it's not great in two respects. One is that it's not encrypted, though that's not so important when we're doing a mass movement at scale, but it is proprietary software. It is software that doesn't belong to us, and we never have any guarantee from one day to the next that it will still be available to us, or that it won't be interfered with in some way. I'm not particularly worried necessarily about surveillance, because when you're dealing with thousands and thousands of people, mass is actually on our side, critical mass is on our side. However, we don't control the platform. We're not the administrators. We might administrate the channel or the server, but we don't administer the software, and that can be problematic. So I've been a bit quiet over the last week, and what I've been taking the time to do is to map our server, all of our channels, and all of the teams that are the backbone of our movement, to make sure that we can very easily replicate it on another solution, or eventually on our own hosted solution. So I very much see the Discord as like a lily pad. It's like we've frog leaped to this first lily pad, which is the Discord server, but there is a very good chance that in the medium term to the long term, we will absolutely be moving to our own hosted solution. So don't be too dependent on the Discord. So although we are using it now, so what I'd really like you to do, and any and every supporter of the movement to do, is to make sure that you go to our website, unity4j.com, and you enter your email address right down the bottom, I think in the contact section of the front page of the site. It's really important that we have an email address for you. Obviously, it can be like an anonymous address. We don't need your personal details. You can put Joe Blogs in there for your name or whatever. But just make sure we have an email address for you, so that if the Discord did get pulled out from under us at any given second, that we can quickly respond and let you know where our new organizing platform is. So just for continuity's sake, please make sure that you have your email address in there. Okay, so what I would like to do next is just take you through the different teams of different skill sets that are being employed in service of the Unity4J movement, and then take you through the channels that are associated with each of those teams, the purpose of those channels, and also let you know some key contacts for each of those teams. Because something that I've noticed is when people join the Discord right now, they come in, they get a welcome message, and it will tell them to go to the roles channel and to select from a whole list of roles. Those roles reflect areas of interest or skill sets or social media platforms that you are active on, et cetera, et cetera. And then people are successfully, we have very high retention rate. Our numbers are consistently going up, and people are, generally speaking, successfully self-selecting their roles. But I think then they get a bit lost as to how to, where to go to from there. So that's particularly what I wanted to cover off with you tonight. So bear with me 1 second while I just move my power pack. Okay. So I'll just go through the team list and the channel map for the server. It's a bit boring. It's like a technical document, so I was thinking like I'd screen share it, but I don't know how interesting it'll be for you guys, so I can probably just talk my way through it. The other thing is that I'm creating graphic-based workflows, which is just like a little chart of images that show you like step by step for each team specifically, how to suggest a task for the team, or how to find a task that's already been listed for the team members to complete, and then where to submit the work for approval before it gets distributed across the movement. So what I'll do is I will have our awesome bots in our server. You'll see TrustyBot is in there. TrustyBot will send this workflow chart to each specific role. Like there's one chart for each role that will be sent to you automatically over the next day or so. So you will have a copy of this. It won't matter, whether or not you got to see the stream, or you won't have to sit here and replay this to work out what to do. You will actually be able to see it in one image. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, so we have our first team is what we call the welcome team. So you would have seen IP coordinator, and they're doing a pretty amazing job over previous weeks of greeting people. But there's also something called the @helpful role, and that's a yellow tag that you'll see on some users. So that tag is given to anybody who has an amazing attitude and is really helpful and kind to the other people on the server. Our mods, we have about 15 mods on the server who are all very trusted, very cool people. When our mods see someone being really kind and helpful and helping out new users, then they give them that @helpful tag. And that @helpful tag gives them some channel permissions over the welcome channels. And they're really good people to tag if you need help with something on the server. You can actually type @helpful, and they will be able to respond directly to you. So the welcome tent channels, or the welcome team channels, #introduce yourself. So that's the very first channel that you enter on the Discord server. That's where you get sent your hi, welcome, thank you so much for coming to help save Julian's life. Please head over to the roles channel. That sends you to the #role channel, which is the one that lists all of the different roles for all the different skill sets and areas of interest. And for those, you can just simply click on the role, like it asks you a question, and you click on the emoji. And once you click on that emoji, it will assign you the role. If you want to get some more information about the different types of roles, or you just want to discuss it with people, you'll see there's a #roles discuss channel, and that's the place for you to do that. So any questions, you can tag an @mod or @helpful person, and they'll be able to hook you up. Same thing if you need a role taken off you, or if you're still getting automated messages, because if you didn't have a role assigned, the bots will periodically remind you, hey, please go and get your roles assigned. So if you're not sure how to do that, those messages can become quite annoying. So by all means, go to #roles discuss and ask someone to help you. Then there's the #rules channel, which just has the basic rules for the server. It's pretty straightforward stuff. It's like no political talk. Like, we check our politics at the door. We don't care who you voted for. We don't care, if you didn't vote at all. But we are all just here for one purpose, and that's to save Julian's life. So there is a total politics ban on our server. It's just all about working towards saving Julian Assange. Then there's a #help channel. So any problems you have with Discord, if you don't know how to use it, if you want to see the user guide for Discord, which we've got a copy of in there, or any other information about the movement, about the streams, the events, where to find stuff, where to find content, or which team leader you need to be talking to, go and ask in #help, and someone will hook you up. And then we have, thanks to the benevolence of Joe Booth, our tech director, 2 chat channels. We have a #campaign chat channel, which is where it's just for general discussion about the campaign and things that we're doing and the direction we're going in. But then there's also a #timeout channel, and that was Joe's creation, so that if you do want to talk about off-topic stuff, not necessarily politics, but if you want to talk about anything else in the world that is unrelated to the campaign, you can go out and #timeout. And those are collectively the welcome team channels. Now, if you want to be a welcome team person, if you want to be an helpful person, rather than, doing any of the other team roles, if you just are someone that likes to engage with people and chat to people, then tag a mod and let them know that, because it is as valuable as any other part of the movement that you could work on, just to be meeting and greeting new users. Because if you hang out and #introduce yourself, there are constantly new users joining the server. So if you can help to those people to get settled in and set them in the right direction, it's actually a very important job, and it's very helpful to us and ultimately to Julian for you to do that. So then we have the next section, which is the news team. So in the news channels, and these are open to everybody, these channels, everybody can see them and contribute to them. So we've divided the news up into urgent news. So you'll see the #urgent channel. That is like the immediate updates on Julian's physical situation, physical condition, anything that relates to his health or his legal situation or his stay at the Ecuadorian embassy goes into that channel. And please don't post anything that's not truly urgent into that channel. Then we have the #recent channel, which is the recent news. So anything that's happened today or yesterday goes into that channel. So the most up-to-date information about the movement and about Julian's situation. Then we have the #live channel. Now, this is for people who are on the ground at the Ecuadorian embassy or can be on the ground at the Ecuadorian embassy, are close enough by to get there in short notice. And that's where their photos, their videos, their content from the Ecuadorian embassy goes in to that channel. And they have their own role, which is called the @live-news role. So if you are in London and you can get to the Ecuadorian embassy in short order, or even as a day trip on the train or whatever, let us know and we'll add you to that team, because your citizen journalism, your eyewitnessing is really important. And that footage is really valuable to us, to the movement. People want to see it. They want to hear firsthand experiences of what's happening at the embassy. So that's really powerful too, if you are in London or close by, if you can join that team and be active in that channel. And then we have the #background channel. And this is background on WikiLeaks or Julian's legal situation or press freedom, human rights, anything in the context of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks that's dated, back over the last 18 years, goes into that channel. And I'd just like to shout out, there is a user, I haven't actually spoken directly to them, but their name is @2encourage. And they have been relentlessly posting background content in there for the last month, and like reams of it, and it's really good, relevant content. So I want to say thank you to that user, because that you've been a massive contributor to that channel, and it's really valuable. It's valuable for us to have reliable background information for at the bottom of our press releases. We put selections of background info, and our media resources, paste bins that go out for each event. Also for supplying journalists and bloggers. And even as reference points for our social media team. So thank you. It's really great. That channel has been highly successful. Then there is a #MSM channel, which is envisioned to become a channel for strategizing engagement with mainstream media. It hasn't been a focus of for us up until this point, primarily because it's a very new movement. And we need to establish ourselves a bit more before we actually start pushing on mainstream media. But it is inevitable that as this movement grows and as our events become more and more frequent and even bigger, and our press releases keep going out, that we will get that MSM coverage. But it's more important that we build a stable operating base and a stable movement so that we can continue to have that growth in the long term than just to chase some headlines. Then there is the media team channel. So the media team is now being run by @AlTheCat, which is Alistair Thompson. Alistair Thompson is the co-founding editor of Scoop News, which is a major publication in New Zealand that every politician, journalist in New Zealand and most of the public knows Scoop. So we are really fortunate that Alistair has devoted his time to growing that team. So it's a new team, but he will be overseeing these media channels going forward. So there is the #media-corrections channel. So this is where people are taking like hit pieces, nasty smear pieces that have been done on, hits on Julian and on WikiLeaks. They're dismantling them. They are analyzing them and then they are correcting them. It's like compiling corrections of those pieces and then submitting them to the publishers and demanding that they correct their record, that they correct their pieces, that they put retractions or whatever it takes, because time and time again, incorrect information about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks is circulated on mass media platforms, and that's not good enough. Too often they do it knowingly, and we're really lucky to have the amazing resource justiceforassange.com, which is justice number 4 assange.com, which debunks many of those incorrect pieces of information that are constantly circulated. You hear all the time, Julian fled charges in Sweden. Well, there was no charges in Sweden. Julian didn't flee Sweden. Julian was given permission to leave Sweden. That Julian was running away from questioning. No, Julian repeatedly asked to be questioned, and they refused for years to question him in London, even though that was standard practice. So these types of things, these types of very common smears against Julian, we have all the documents already are up on Justice for Assange. We need to use them to debunk those smears wherever possible. Then there is the Hash Media Coordinating Channel, which is a new channel for Media Team. And that's where we'll be coordinating our bloggers and journalists to write topical pieces about Julian and WikiLeaks that have factual and correct information. So then we move on to our communications team. Our communications team is one of the largest on our server and is currently being run by a user called Mackenzie Rose. Mackenzie is an amazing person. Some of you will know her from Twitter as well. She has been a massive help to our movement. So the communications channels we have, I'm try and speed up going through this because there's so much. I could sit here for 2 hours just taking you through this. There's the comms discussion channel, the urgent tasks channel, hash urgent tasks. So if we need something done like today, we'll put it in there, we'll tag in the comms team, and the comms team have been amazing about having that really fast turnover and getting work out in a short time frame. The hash comms discussion, where we just talk about different tasks or different things that we need to do or things that are coming up. And then there's the approvals channel for communications, which is hash comms approvals. So all work that is produced by any of the creative teams or the comms team does go through an approvals process, and then once it gets that final sign-off, then it goes out through the official accounts or the website. So comms team is primarily handling press releases, they're handling handling resources for the events, guest invites to events, copywriting for our outreach team and things like that. They have a hash releases channel, which is specifically for writing press release, a hash mailouts channel for writing a mailouts, hash outreach channel, which is now being led by @Greenweaver Alex, who's another amazing Kiwi activist. You might have seen her, Alex Hill. She was on our last vigils stream talking to me. She's also the person who did the candles at the Beehive, the New Zealand Parliament in Wellington, the Free Assange candles, and some of the amazing music and particularly violin work that she's done for the movement. She's been another amazing contributor. Then we have the awards team. The awards team is being run by @GovForThePeople, GOVT, number 4, the people. Gov for the People is working currently on he was working on the Australian for the Year nomination for Julian Assange, but now has moved on to the Nobel Peace Prize nomination for Julian Assange. So if you want to be a part of helping Julian to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, join our server, jump in the awards team, get yourself a comms team role, jump in the awards team. Actually, awards team has their own role too now, which you can sign up for. Talk to Gov for the People and start working on it. I think nominations for it opens somewhere in November, I think, this year. Then we have the Hash Research channel, which is led by @Kitty Hundal, HUNDAL. Kitty is an amazing activist. She's from Canada. She's a very old friend of myself and of Internet Party, and she's an incredibly productive activist, absolutely phenomenal activist. She is coordinating over 100 people in the research channel. And they are the ones who've been compiling contact information for religious organizations, unions, different groups all around the world who our outreach team can then approach to not just to endorse Unity for J as a movement, but to take their own actions in solidarity with Julian and act towards freeing Julian Assange, no matter wherever they are in the world. Okay, and then we have the #legal channel, and I can tell you that there is a member associated with Julian Assange's legal team present in that channel, so you can ask questions, you can raise legal documents, contribute legal references, anything. I know there's actually a large number of trained legal, we call them legal beagles, is our role for them on our server. So anyone who has a particular interest or expertise relating to law and maybe asylum or extradition law, human rights law, etc., is more than welcome to contribute in that channel. And then we have Interfaith Solidarity channel, which we are hoping to nag Father Dave, who you would have seen on our vigil streams, to lead going forward. And that is just as Unity for J is bringing together people from all different political walks of life, Interfaith Solidarity is to bring together people from all of the religions and to have them act together to create solidarity for Julian Assange and for the movement. So that if you're a really spiritual person and, no matter what your denomination is, you're very, very welcome there. Okay, now next we have the actions team, and I'm not going to go through that so much tonight because you'll see the actions channels just represent maybe a dozen different countries so far. But I'm going to leave that one aside, other than to tell you that we are very shortly announcing our first inaugural Unity for J on the ground event action day. And when you see that call go out, we will be looking for people in countries all around the world to take solidarity actions for Unity for J. And then we will be periodically repeating those event days. And I would like to see them happen with increasing frequency. So it may be once a month and then 2 weeks and then weekly and then every 3 days and then every day if we can, eventually have the infrastructure to support it. Anybody who takes part in our events will have the full support of all of the movement participants, all of our social media accounts. We will make as much noise for you and to promote your actions as we possibly can. And so, yeah, I'll leave the action stuff aside right now. But obviously anyone can use the actions channel. You don't have to specifically be a member of the actions team at this time. Then we have a social media team. Social media team has been performing really well. If you've seen our Facebook account, our Twitter account, we have been really kicking ass. We've been growing, significantly growing the followings and the numbers on them. And I'm very happy with how they're operating. Our Twitter admins are doing an amazing job. Our Facebook admins had to start from scratch, but they're doing an amazing job as well. That page is growing quickly and there's fantastic content. Now, the most important channel of all the social media channels, because you'll see we have Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, Steemit, Instagram, Google+, you name it, there's dozens of social media channels there in the Discord server. But the most important one is #all platforms, #all-platforms, because that channel has the approved content from all of the different teams in Unity for J. Everything goes into that channel. So every member of the movement should be checking #all platforms because that content should be copied to all platforms, no matter what it is, anywhere on the internet. Please share that content. You'll see videos, you'll see graphics, you'll see press statements, you'll see translations, you'll see transcripts, you'll see all different types of content. So everything that's been officially approved and is ready for circulation, things that we want to be viral in #all platforms. So please check that out. Okay, so I'll skip through the dozen plus social media channels. We've got everything, Wikipedia, the works. There's also an analytics channel there where our people do social media. You would have seen this, the analytics are off the charts. I was going to brag a little bit. Over 220,000 live viewers on the Periscope for our last vigil event. Was absolutely next level phenomenal growth for us. but also at Weda, WEDA, who's a really cool Aussie activist, had, and I think I shared them during the vigil. I usually do share them during the vigil. Had created some amazing graphics of our analytics, showing umpteen tens of millions of impressions, and I think 4,500 Twitter accounts or more had been active on our hashtag during the vigil. So really spectacular results that we have been achieving as a movement, and there's really cool visualizations of that in the Hash Analytics channel. So we also have the Hash Bloggers and Hash Journalists channel there. So if you're a blogger or if you're a professional journalist and you have an established mass publishing platform, you're welcome to collaborate in those channels, and there has been some really good work that has come out of them as well. Then we have our creative team. So our creative team are responsible for these amazing graphics. You would have seen dozens and dozens, if not over 100 by now, custom-made Unity4J graphics. And very shortly, they will all be up and available on our website. You'll be able to download wallpapers and profile pictures and banners, and both digital and print, that you will be able to download and to go and get printed in various formats, stickers and posters and flyers, etc., 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 and big banners like protest banners for the actions that we're planning. So in the creative team, we have hash graphics tasks, which is if you need graphics made for Unity4J for any event you're doing, for anything else, anybody, not just like me or a mod, but anybody can go and request graphics from the graphics team. We have a huge graphics team. They're extremely talented. They're being led by a woman called Ania, A-N-I-A, Django. And she is an incredibly talented professional graphic designer. And she's been working with many other professional graphic designers who have volunteered their services to the movement. So jump in there and ask if you need images made, and people are very enthusiastic about responding to those tasks and getting them done. There's a Hash Graphics Drafts channel where people are iterating the different versions of their graphics before they submit them for approval. A templates channel where you'll find our overlays, our logos, our design templates. And then we have the Hash Video channel for the video team, and they're the ones who've been just creating unbelievable amounts of amazing content. If you go to the Unity4J YouTube channel, you'll see promo videos, short videos, 15-minute recap videos, history of the movement videos, full interviews from the vigils, full streams from the vigils, everything. There is so much content that has been produced in such a short time. So please go have a look through the channel and share those videos as far and wide as you can. Then we have the Hash Music channel, which is for our music team. And that's where the music that you would have heard at the beginning of this stream, and since, if you've been watching WikiLeaks account or Julian Assange account recently, you would have seen a lot of the music being tweeted out from them. I've got to actually say I don't often get to say this, but a huge thank you to WikiLeaks and to the @Julian Assange Twitter account and Facebook accounts, because they have consistently shared, circulated, and recognized the work of this movement. And it's just amazing to see a group of musicians come together in this channel, collaborate and work on a track, watch it go through the whole production process, and then be approved and submit and circulated. I've also got to call out our music. Sorry, I also should have said our video team leader is @Jenny. Oh, now I'm going to say her name incorrectly. Let me check. Jenny Helena. Jenny, JENNIE _Helena has been coordinating our video team and doing an amazing job of it, along with the help of @DavidS and @Fly, who are the ones who are actually uploading and curating our YouTube channel. But I've got to shout out V for Vapid and James Gets It, who's also the amazing rapper from Kill the Messenger and Break Lights tracks. Those two guys have held the music team down really well. They have a SoundCloud account. All of the music of the movement gets uploaded to the SoundCloud account. And then it's so exciting to then see WikiLeaks and Julian Assange accounts on Twitter sending that out to millions of people and seeing how much circulation it's getting is just absolutely phenomenal to see this work go through, the whole pipeline start to finish. It is amazing. Okay, and then then all of the creative channels have hash creative approvals. So once they have finished producing their content, they post it to hash creative approvals, and then myself or one of the other creative directors comes along and we put, if it's approved, if it's good to go, we put a little approved emoji on it, which automatically transports it to the hash all platforms channel, and then everybody can go and pick it up and circulate it out all around the net. Okay, then we have the web team. I'm going to stay away from talking about the web team, actually, because mainly Joe, our tech director, is the best person to talk about it. But we have, I think, like 60 or 70, maybe more people on the web team now, all different types of people, UX designers, networkers, security guys, the works. And they are the ones who are diligently working away in a GitHub to create an entire new website for us. So we'll be getting rid of the ugly 2-minute job website that we set up right at the beginning when we didn't even know that this was going to become a movement. We thought we just wanted somewhere to embed our YouTube stream because we were holding this, the first vigil event. But eventually we're going to have a brand spanking new, amazing, all bells and whistles website thanks to the web team. So if you have web skills or you're a software developer or anything like that, please jump on, be a part of it. Tag our tech director at Joe, Jomange, Joe Mange, and he will hook you up. Then we have our stream team, which are the wonderful people that make streams like this happen and run the restream and the OBS and the Zoom and everything else that we have going, and make sure that this gets out to all of our different platforms, and put our awesome content at the beginning of the streams and whatnot. That's run by Eben Kim, Eben, EBON_Kim. So if you want to be a part of stream team, if you are a broadcast engineer or something like that, you want to help to increase the quality of our streams, please jump on board. That would be massively appreciated. And of course, they are the hash stream team channel from the tech team on our Discord. Then we have the hash scribes channel, which is run by Fleur. Now, Fleur, I need to double check what her screen name is. No, it's just at Fleur in the Discord by the looks of it. So Fleur is another really she's actually one of our mods as well. She's a very trustworthy member of our team, but she's also extremely meticulous about creating transcriptions. So what the scribes team have been doing is going back over all of our video content, all of our vigils and everything that we've produced in the movement, and are transcribing the whole lot. And the idea is that with our new website, we'll have a gallery of all of our past videos, events, vigils, etc. And they will all have a click for text version where people can read through these transcriptions. So that's an amazing feature to have for people that don't want to sit there and watch a 50-hour vigil stream, but who really are interested in what certain guests said at any given point. So that's really an amazing function for us. And then that feeds into the translations team. And just before I get onto translations, I would just also call out the podcasters team, which is run by Commander X Anon on Twitter, or just X. It's actually ~X on our Discord server. And he has been taking all of our vigil interviews, which, God, now there's probably more than 100, I'm sure, over the course of the last 4 months that we've been running the vigils, and turning them into podcasts and then uploading them to the official Unity4J podcast account, which is a Mixcloud account. I believe it's mixcloud.com/Unity4J. So if you go check that out already, you'll see umpteen episodes of these full interviews of guests that we've been doing over the last few months. And it's really cool. I've spent a day or two sitting there listening to them all myself. And he's done an amazing job with that, really amazing. So if you want to help him with, ripping to MP3 and whatever else he's doing to get that up there, you can jump on, get into Hash Podcasts, join the podcast team. Okay, so then we have the translations team, and I'm laughing because the translations team blows my mind, honestly. Every time I look, there's another 4 languages. I think we're up over like 32, 34, 35 languages now. And that's all been held together by the amazing at MEHDI, MEHDI, which is Mehdi Taleb, who you would have seen on some of the vigils, at Mulan, Mulan, and at Zaldivar, Zaldivar. Z for you Americans, Z for us New Zealanders, Zaldivar. Those 3 guys are managing these dozens of languages. And so what's happening is every time we create a graphic or every time we get quotes, you'll see quotes go out from various guests at the vigils. It goes into the main hash translations channel, and then it gets translated into all these dozens of languages. And they've been establishing all of these Twitter accounts. So if you've kept a close eye on #Unity4J or at Unity4J on Twitter, you would have seen these for sure. There's like Korean and like Arabic and even like African languages, amazing, and Te Reo Māori from New Zealand Indigenous language. We've even got translated press releases going out now. It's pretty amazing. And our hope is that eventually each of those Twitter accounts for each of those languages will be able to reach their native audiences, so that we're not just talking to, the English-speaking business and academic world, but that we're actually really able to reach all 4 corners of the planet in our quest to free Julian. And I think it's a really important function. And I'm very proud that we're doing it. It's a significant achievement for the movement to be able to speak in so many languages and so many voices. So scrolling down the massive page of different translation channels. So then there's like a resources team. This is something we haven't developed very well. In fact, I'd call this basically stagnant. And it's pretty much been because we haven't needed really to use it. So we have a channel which is #wishlist, which is just where if people have something they want us to do, they could put in there, and that's pretty fine. But then there's a #equipment, #personnel, and #funding. We've basically decided, as a movement, that we don't particularly want to have a big drive for funding and resources because it inevitably leads you down a bad path. And I saw this happen at Occupy, but also at other movements as well. It's a very slippery slope to internalizing the movement in ways that are distracting. And we have such an amazing situation where people are of their own goodwill donating their professional skills and their professional experience to the cause of the movement, that it's kept a real purity. There's been a real purity in the focus of the movement, and I don't want to really derail that at this point. We're lucky enough, we don't need to have physical office space, we don't need to have a Fuji Xerox printer, like we don't need those types of things. So we've been just primarily, we constantly ask on our vigils and on all of our graphics and whatnot that people donate to Julian's Legal Defence Fund, and that they donate to wikileaks.org, because that is the absolute most important thing to help to support WikiLeaks and to help to support Julian. So I am wikileaks.org. If you can donate, that would be massively appreciated. I'm wikileaks.org, and what's the other one? I guess just wikileaks.org/donate. Okay, and then there's another 8 or so tech teams. There's web UX, design, web front end, web back end, networking, security, and tech are the final 6 web teams. So if you're a tech person and want to get involved in any of those, please jump on, get the GitHub access, and contribute. Okay, so that's where we're at currently. So what that cuts down to is that there is 11 teams, 11 major teams, which is the welcome team, the news team, the comms team, actions for everyone, social media team, creative team, tech team, translations team, and web team. So if any of those sound good to you and you want to be a part, or people who have these skills and that might want to be a part, please absolutely pass that on and get them involved in the movement. growth is awesome, but so is sustainable growth, which is why we've put so much effort into developing this platform and this backend and making it work. So one of the things that I've noticed is that there is a certain section of our audience and even participants in the movement for whom utilizing the Discord server is difficult. They haven't used a tool like it before, or they're not really tech people. And I don't want those people to feel like just because they don't have the tech chops to participate in this format that they're being left behind. So if that is you, if that describes you, if you've gone into the Discord and been like, holy crap, what is all this stuff? How can I even contribute here? And you're feeling a bit lost, please go to unity4j.com and go scroll down the page and enter your email address, because our outreach people will coordinate with you. We will transport our initiatives to an email format so that you don't have to use this server for collaboration, but you still can be a part of the events that are coming up in the coming months. So I think it's fair to say that most people would agree with me that we have achieved a phenomenal amount in the first 4 weeks of the existence of this movement. We've been doing vigil events for 4 months, but it was only a month ago that we actually launched this platform and began collaborating on it. And the fact that we have these teams and they're producing so much work is definitely a pat on the back moment, not just for me, but for everybody who's been involved in pushing this. You guys are amazing. This is truly historic, and it's important. It's necessary. It's necessary because we can't afford to just be passive witnesses to the desecration of human rights that goes on around us every single day. We don't want to just be swearing at our television and screwing up our newspaper in disgust. We want to be a part of actually altering the course of the events that are happening around us, and to have say and have input and have influence. And together we can do that at a scale that is unimaginable to, one person maybe as an individual. I can hear Snowden in my head always saying, as one person, what could I do? Well, as one person, you can change the world. As 2,001 persons together, unified, you can be an absolute force to be reckoned with. And that's precisely what we're creating here. So thank you so much for being a part of this, and keep growing strong. And remember that this is just the beginning. This is just a beautiful seed that we have planted that we can continue to grow and nurture to, I feel like I'm getting a bit cliched here, to bloom into something that we can harvest for the most at-risk journalist, truth teller in the world, someone who protects other truth tellers, at-risk journalists and whistleblowers. We together can stand up against the massive forces that are against him, and we can influence the outcome of his situation. We can protect him. We can liberate him. And we don't have to just be those passive witnesses to, events that are unfolding anymore. We can direct them. It is our democratic right to do so. It is our protected democratic right to do so, and it's our moral obligation to do so. So thank you guys all so much. Okay, now guys, can I please get a list of, if you have questions, if there's anything you want to ask me? Yeah, Mackenzie's just saying it's crazy to think we've only been working together for 4 weeks. I feel like I've known people like Mackenzie, I work with her every day, and I didn't know her a month ago, but literally every day I work with her. And there's dozens, if not hundreds of other people that are exactly the same that I've developed really close working relationships with, and that I constantly work with. I never flying clue who they were a month ago, and they probably didn't have a clue who I was either. So it's a really beautiful thing to see that community form and to be a part of it. It's incredibly special, incredibly special. So any questions, you guys? Questions, comments, feedback? It doesn't even have to be a question, just anything you want to let me know. One thing I want to point out is I am really accessible. I am very accessible because I'm on Discord constantly, and you can find simply at Suzie on the Discord server. So if you don't feel comfortable talking in the YouTube chat or whatever, but you do want to have a quiet word to me, people reach out to me every day, and you're more than welcome to. Just go to unity4j.com/discord. And then once you've joined up, type @Suzie, and you can add me and anybody on the server can direct message me. Send me a message, let me know your thoughts, and I'm more than happy to take them on board. I'm not a genie. I can't necessarily grant every wish, but I certainly can listen at least and be present for you and be accessible to you. Okay, Joe, are you with me? Do we have like one of those cool restream things where I can see all the comments in one link? Tech angels, hook me up. Someone says that they've helped some on the Scribes channel, and Fleur has been wonderful. Yeah, Fleur works unbelievably hard. She is just phenomenal, amazing. Jerry says, it is not hyperbole to suggest that the Unity for J movement has the potential for literally changing the world for the better, including the establishment of true world peace for this and future generations. I don't know where we can take this in the long term, but I can tell you, like, what I fantasize about personally is taking, freeing Julian first and foremost, achieving his liberation, but to then take this model and apply it to other at-risk journalists, truth tellers, and whistleblowers. Because, and maybe this is something we should address, because I don't like to give negative stuff a lot of time, because I think like the best response we can have to people who criticize us is actually for us just to keep achieving amazing things and producing amazing work and staying on course with our goal and our aim, and just keeping going no matter what is the biggest middle finger that you can give to any of the haters. However, I would say there's some ridiculous and completely unfounded criticism that Unity for J is like new supporters. Well, first of all, I've been writing about like then Bradley Manning and Julian Assange and related topics since 2011. I've been following them, sharing their work since 2010, so I certainly don't consider myself to be a new supporter. But who cares? Because new supporters is exactly what we're trying to achieve. We want new supporters. We want as many new supporters as possible so that we actually can have a mass movement, so we can achieve the aim, which is actually to free Julian. And when I look back over the last 8 years, I think the biggest failure, and I've often wondered to myself, like, why isn't there a mass movement? Why aren't there people marching on the streets in the millions to free Julian, to free Edward Snowden, to free God knows like how many 6, 7, 8 courage beneficiaries? We should be marching in the millions for them. And why hasn't that happened? And the reason it hasn't happened is because it has remained a niche issue. It has been seen as like, just the privacy activist crowd or just whatever niche crowd. Until you open the participation up to the mainstream, which is everybody, the 99%, not just the 15%, the 20%, the 25%, until you open it up to everybody, you can't have a mass movement. And until you have a mass movement, you're not going to be able to apply enough political pressure to be able to make a difference. So first of all, if you're a new supporter of Julian, I'm really proud of you that you've had the guts to get on and be a part of this. There's no greater merit in an old supporter than in a new supporter. Both of them are supporting from a position of conscience, of morality and of ethics, and should be equally treasured and rewarded. But also, I do think it is way over time for us to stand up and fight for the people who suffer. And why is it that you have to pay a price to be a whistleblower? Why don't you have to pay a price to be a criminal, racketeering, corporate scumbag? I mean, it seems like they should be the people who are paying the price and not the whistleblowers. And it's going to, until we stand up and say, hey, enough, we're going to band together and we're going to support these guys in a way that can't be ignored, in a way that they can't be persecuted. Until that day comes, then we're stuck with the status quo. So I agree. I don't know that we can achieve world peace. It'd be nice to think so, but I do think we can achieve mass movements in support of truth tellers, whistleblowers, and at-risk journalists in a way that has not been done yet to date. And I absolutely hope that that's the seeds of what this is. And that's not at all to run down the work that people like Courage have done, because Courage have done really highly specialized work in specific, like what they did for Laurie Love, fighting against extradition in the UK, things like this. They're highly specialized fields, and they require a level of expertise and whatnot that you're not necessarily going to have. This format is a little bit different, but what we are doing is opening up that support base to the public and bringing supporters on board en masse. So it's pretty amazing and pretty special. Okay, I'm just going to quickly open up this awesome link that I've been sent with all of your questions and messages. And then I'm going to bring on some guests. My guests have been patiently waiting for my late overdue behind for an hour now. So thank you guys so much for that. Right. And I see I have 350 notifications on Twitter. So you guys must be busy. Wow, thank you. Please do share this as far and wide as you can. Kara says, right, and politics don't matter. It's so true. It's so true. What are we going to do? Just sit around and argue with each other for the next 50 years? Or are we going to get off our backsides and just work together and actually achieve something? Personally, I would way rather achieve something than I would sit here and have, oh my God, now you guys are making me blush. Please no inappropriate comments. And it's like really hot here. So if I'm looking like Cassandra Rules, I apologize. Sorry, Cassandra. Guys, hit me with your questions. Okay, Vivian's. Oh. Well done, the Bay. Bay's just saying they got onto the Discord and they've added Twitter and joined the Twitter team. Well done. Guys, if you had a question, this appears to be in real time, the restream that I've just got. So just please ask your question again. And guys, please just do me a favor and try to keep the amusing comments about me out of the chat just for now, just so I can read and respond to the actual questions that you have. Someone asked, what is the legal definition of the internet? Well, you're going to have to talk to someone who's a lot smarter about that than me. I can tell you that this, the fact that net neutrality lapsed and then we've seen the mass censorship push on the back of it, I personally don't think that's unrelated. That's the only thing that I've got to say about that. Someone's asking for Jesse Ventura to come on. Very soon I'm going to have a talk to you guys about the next vigil, because we've actually completely changed how the vigils are going to work going forward. You're only going to see me on these State of the Movement addresses. Well, you might see me a little bit at the vigils, but I'm not going to be interviewing and hosting the vigils anymore. We've passed them on to Joe Laurier, who's the editor-in-chief of Consortium News, and there's a whole new format for the vigils, and there'll be new, very, very high-profile guests, so hold out for that. It's going to be amazing. Empress is saying to reach out to the No Dapple people. I completely agree with you. Absolutely. We are very, very interested in working with them. Very, very interested. Please don't tell Cassandra that I made that joke. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So many positive comments, you guys. Any questions? I can't really give you much of an update on Julian's health other than to tell you that what we know from the medical reports already, which is that, he has damage to his spatial awareness from being in a tiny little room all the time, never being able to see at a distance, is just literally destroying his eyesight. When you never have an opportunity to see natural light, where your eyes can't adjust to natural light, where you have no access to sunlight, where you can't see further than 2 meters away, and not just for days, not just for weeks or months, but for 6 years, it actually completely destroys your eyesight. Your organs begin to break down. It's incredibly serious, the medical problems that he faces. On top of that, he has, teeth issues with his teeth. He needed a root canal 2.5 years ago that he has not been able. Imagine not. God, like it does my head in. Like you can't last 2 weeks not being able to have a root canal, but 2.5 years is just absolutely unthinkable. He needed an MRI for his shoulder. He hasn't been able to get that. So it's disgusting and despicable and hypocritical that in, major Western centres, supposedly the Western countries that care about human rights so much, so we know that frankly all bullshit, excuse my language, and they will trample on human rights just as fast as anybody else. And we're seeing that on display with Julian's situation. How's Karen doing? I don't know. It looks like Karen's definitely being targeted in London, which is not surprising, but also miserable and tragic. So I hope that people can reach out to Kieran and support him by any means, because he absolutely deserves it. He's been unwavering in his support of Julian and his actions. Yes, Paula is asking if one of Julian's lawyers is with him all the time. Yes, he has a lawyer with him all of the time to make sure, I think, as much for being a witness as for being legal advice, in my personal opinion. Someone's asking if I can update the Senate Intelligence Committee calling Julian Assange to testify. All I can tell you on that front is what his legal team have said, which is that they're carefully considering the offer, but that it would have to be done very ethically. I'd refer you back to their official statement on that, because I don't have any particular insight into that at all. I'm not a member of Julian's legal team. I'm not qualified to talk about his legal situation. I can only tell you, the same thing you would have read is what I've read. Other questions about Julian testifying? I have absolutely no idea. I'm so sorry. I don't know what the implications of testifying are whatsoever. I mean, I know what I'd hope for him, which is that he does it remotely, does it in a safe location, but he has the best legal team in the world for someone who's in his position, and I think that they will handle it the correct and appropriate way, whatever that is, which is definitely outside of my field of expertise. Why can't Julian put out statements through his lawyers? Julian did put out a statement through his lawyers when the Ecuadorian journalists were killed on the border of Ecuador and Colombia and really murdered. They weren't even just killed, they were murdered. Julian put out a solidarity statement with those journalists. So if Julian wants to put out a statement, then he can and does put out a statement. He has put out there's been a couple small messages from him, directions from him. For example, he asked that people not send mail directly to the Ecuadorian embassy to him, because I think he was getting flooded with thousands of letters and postcards every day. But he asked that they instead write to their elected officials advocating for him and for him to be released, and to send copies, to CC copies of those communications to the embassy, because I think that is beneficial to his legal team to be able to demonstrate that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people all around the world who are reaching out to their elected officials and advocating for Julian. Okay, any other questions, you guys? Because how do we free Julian Assange? What works? What will work is what worked in the Free Mandela campaign, which is an ever-growing awareness amongst the global population of the issues and of the importance, and ever-growing actions on the ground and online, but primarily on the ground around the world, that real community organizing. And you can do it no matter where your town or city is, whether you get 2 people involved or 5 people involved. We can do it. It's word of mouth. I have watched word of mouth kick the ass of the mainstream media over and over again in my activism. It absolutely, word of mouth is the most potent tool. Look at the numbers that we pulled in the last 4 months with a $0 marketing budget, with hostile social media platforms. Nothing beats word of mouth. When humans really care and really decide to act, no marketing company or dollars or social media platform in the world can shut us up. So that's how we free him. That is how we do it. Barbara Quigley's got some good feedback about Julian's situation. I would agree with that, though again, I'm not a member of the legal team. Okay, last call for a question. Suzie, what are we supposed to do with all platforms? Okay, so great question, the Bay. Thank you for that question. What you do with all platforms is you go and click on it, and you should be able to see a whole bunch of stuff in there, and you can scroll back up through it and see like through previous days and weeks. There will be videos, there will be photos, there will be graphics and memes, there will be quotes from vigils with their, like quote images with their face and who they are and the quote. There'll be content that's been translated into multiple foreign languages. There'll be press statements. There'll be there'll be all kinds of things in that channel. And so what you do is you save it. You can like save the pictures or copy the links and just spread it everywhere, like literally everywhere on the internet. News groups, email the stuff to people. Be like, hey, have you seen this? Wow, check this out. Isn't this cool? I love this image. Oh, have you seen this video? Oh, did you look? This is Daniel Ellsberg talking about how he loves Julian Assange, or this is whatever. Brian Crosby is saying Facebook is censoring. Yes, Facebook is censoring, but you know what? We don't need Facebook because we built mass movements before there even was a Facebook. So we can use Facebook, but don't just use Facebook. Use everything at your disposal, whether it's talking to the guy at the shop that you buy the milk from, to literally talking to other kids at your parents' school, to writing. I mean, there used to be really subversive campaigns in New Zealand, and not that I'm advocating this necessarily, but they would make just stickers with a hashtag, and they would just like go and sticker like every public toilet, every lamppost, everything over the whole city, thousands of stickers, just stick them everywhere. And people go, oh, what's this hashtag? And they type it into their phone, and hello, they have like mountains of videos and graphics and everything else. Something as simple as that. Something as simple as just taking the Unity for J hashtag and making thousands of stickers, tiny little stickers, and just plastering them all over your city. Chalk is, we used to chalk, or we chalked for Syria. I've got amazing, when we participated in the Chalkupy, with Occupy, there was a whole Chalkupy movement where we'd do these chalkings. And so we would go and I mean, I'm not an artist. I can't chalk to save my life, but I could sure as hell chalk a hashtag. So we would go out and do, like graffiti artists do bombs with spray paint. We would bomb with chalk, and we'd do these giant like chalk hashtags everywhere. Just something as simple as that. You don't rely on Facebook. We can put them out of business. Never mind them trying to shut our activism down. We can shut them down the second that we decide to. Any other questions, you guys? You have like 4 minutes, and then I'm going to start introducing guests, and I'm going to have a drink for a minute. Oh my God, that's such a good suggestion. Tina Colby just said local talkback stations. Hell yes. Bring your local talkback stations and be like, and the thing is, you can kind of lure them in as well, because, let's just say they're talking about washing machines. You can ring up and be like, oh, I really want to talk about washing machines. And then when they put you on air, you can be like, oh, yes, washing machines, and Julian Assange is being tortured in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and that's not good enough, and I don't support that, and we need to do something about it. And there's a movement of ordinary people around the world. Go and look up #Unity4J and see, we're going to band together and we're going to free this man, because our corrupt governments are torturing him right in front of our eyes, and our corrupt media isn't saying a damn thing about it. Absolutely ring up Talkback Radio. Absolutely. That's a fantastic idea. The corporate New World Order fears Julian. All of the corrupt fear Julian. Whether they are politically corrupt, financially corrupt, whatever they are all, even social media platforms, and particularly the media, they can't stand him. And that's why we have to fight, 3 times as hard. Tina says sticky notes in bathrooms. Sticky notes in bathrooms works really, really well. Really well. You can be quite subversive about it, You can like stick it on the backs of the toilet paper or whatever, like where people are going to pull it and be like, oh, what's this? Like you can do whatever, and you don't have to damage any property even or anything to do it, but just wallpaper your city. Like Quinn Peterson, I think it was, did an amazing thing. She printed out these like bookmarks just on paper and then just like cut them, and it was just like free Julian, unity for Jay, and a nice picture of Julian. And she like whatever guillotined them into these little paper bookmarks, and she went to the libraries and just stuck one in every book. So people are like taking books out of the library, opening and being like, oh, what's this? Oh, wow. Oh, I'll type this hashtag into my phone. Yeah, and there is a QR code. Someone's talking about our QR code. If you see that QR code that's on a lot of our graphics that are coming out at the moment, you can print that QR code. You can stick it on stickers. You can put it on wherever you like. People scan the QR code and they're going to hit our website, see our streams and the interviews and everything. So yeah, top prizes for people who can come up with the most like incredibly subversive ways of spreading the message about this movement, about the importance of freeing Julian without being just dependent on Facebook. I mean, it's really easy to sit there and click retweet or whatever, but if we get creative, we can actually have a massive impact. I love that you guys are all sitting in chat and coming up with these smart ideas for promoting the movement. It's really, really clever. Okay, so since we're getting on in time, I'm going to bring on some of our guests who've been patiently waiting. Okay, so where we go here. Awesome. So actually, it's a ladies' night tonight. We have got from Australia, Kathy Vaughan. We have got from New York City, Margaret Kimberley. And we have got from multiple cities, Vivian Kubrick. Welcome to the stream, ladies.
New York.
Margaret, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh, no.
I think your camera's stickered. Happens to me all the time.
Oh, no.
Have you got a sticker over your camera?
No.
Possibly. Let me see if I can do anything about this. Nope, I think you just have to log out and log back in. Probably will fix it, because some other guests have had similar issue. Wow, you guys, the chat is moving so fast I can't even keep up with it. If there's any super pressing important questions that I missed, then please let me know. As the slow crucifixion of Julian Assange continues, it's difficult to see how not more people have stood up for Julian. To that, I would say that more and more people are standing up for Julian. So I think if you backtrack 4 months, that certain powers that be would have felt pretty confident that they wouldn't live to see a 50-hour vigil stream for Julian featuring some of the top names worldwide. They had worked very hard to degrade support for Julian over the last however many years. And I think that 2018 is the year that we have successfully reinvigorated his support base. And I can tell you this just from organizing the vigils. I've gone from reaching out to people and saying, hey, can you be a part of this, to having people constantly contacting me saying, hey, can I please be a part of this? So I'm already seeing that traction happen of natural causes. Mackenzie's asking who's coming on right now. We've got Kathy Vaughan, who is an Australian filmmaker. She recently interviewed Julian Assange and myself at an event called Politics in the Pub in Sydney. I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but you can Probably if you type politics in the pub on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, you're going to find the videos of it pretty quickly. It was quite an interesting, actually, any of you that have been across the stoush with the socialists recently would have found, with some particular socialists, I should say, rather than the socialists, might be particularly interested to see, because there was a debate component on that night in the Q&A, which was really, really interesting session. Really interesting session. Yeah, I'm happy we started the Discord too. So good. I totally agree. It's been an amazing, amazing thing. As well as Kathy, by the way, you're on. You can say hi to everyone.
Hello, everybody. Can people see me?
Yes, they can.
Switch to me, and I can't stay here for very long because I have to go to teach class soon. But yeah, I just wanted to say hello and thank all the Unity for J people, Suzie, the tech team, everybody for supporting our event in Sydney. It was high jinks. Christine got cut off right in the middle for us. She didn't get cut off. We came prepared, but we had about 15 minutes to get back online, so there was no real interruption. And Christine has had trouble trying to get into live events before, so we actually pre-recorded it. What else is happening here in Australia? Well, something quite dramatic. It looks like we might have a leadership challenge going on. So the Prime Minister has been challenged by who's the Minister for Home Affairs and Immigration. That's looking a bit more complicated for that individual than what had first appeared. He seems to have a problem with his eligibility to sit in Parliament, so that's all come out as well, been big dramas in Australia. But what really concerns us here is that we are worried that we get a new Prime Minister who is even less supportive of Julian Assange. That would be really terrible. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll know today. But yeah,
is it really possible for there to be one that is less supportive than Malcolm Turnbull has been?
Well, in her interview, Christine Assange was talking about people who support refugees, and that particular minister who challenged Malcolm Turnbull, who's the current Prime Minister, is the one who's got there's a lot of bad karma there about how he's treated refugees. But Christine was pointing out that Julian is a refugee, so why aren't those people supporting him? And also he revealed the information about what had been done to cause all these refugees as well. So he was, in a way, he was standing up for every refugee, and people here should stand up for him as well. So this guy that may become Prime Minister is not a nice character, and there's been complaints to the United Nations and everything about, what our government have been doing to refugees. Well, this is the guy in charge. And it's also been, there's a couple of different departments that have been merged together. So it's sort of like it's also like the Department of Homeland Security here. That's very strange that those different portfolios have been merged together. One would fear that the terrible treatment of refugees might turn inwards to people not so fortunate in Australia. That's what we're worried about. So not a nice guy, as far as most people think, but there's a couple of other contenders as well, one which is the current Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, who's one of the moderates, and then there's another one called Scott Morrison, who used to be the Minister for Immigration. So maybe they've just got to get very tough in that role. But yeah, so I hope that maybe Malcolm will last it out. We don't know. but if not, I'm kind of hoping it's the lady, because she'll be the least tough of the three, I think, of the four. And we may get a better outcome for Julian out of that.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so too. Though, having seen Julia Gillard, pretty much anybody would be a improvement on her or on Malcolm Turnbull. I'm not impressed with either of those past prime ministers. Though I heard something about you've had something like 5 prime ministers in 6 years. Is that true?
Yeah, but speaking of Malcolm Turnbull and Julia Gillard, of course, Ross Cameron managed to dig up a lecture by our Prime Minister before he was a Prime Minister. In his previous lives, he's been 2 things of great note. One was an excellent barrister, and he won the famous spy catcher case. The Thatcher government wanted secrecy imposed for life on anybody who had worked for MI5, and I guess MI6 now, but there was a former officer that wrote his memoirs, and there was an attempt to ban it, and Turnbull defended the author and won the case against all odds. And at that lecture, because it was topical, highly topical at the time, this was 2011, he went on to give an amazing defense of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, and really condemned Julia Gillard for being a lousy lawyer, because she was a lawyer. That's the most astounding thing about Gillard saying that what Julian had done was illegal. She knew it wasn't. And our Australian Federal Police 10 days later made the announcement, but, she can't have not known. So anyway, I mean, we were blasting Malcolm with that for a week or so. Look what we found, because it had disappeared off his website, but it was in the Wayback Machine. And Ross did an excellent expose on that as well on Sky News, which is mainstream in Australia. But it seemed like we might have found Malcolm's soft spot. But look, the law is the law. Julian hasn't committed any crime. And he said at the time, I think I can quote him, that speaking of, the pundits in America were calling for Julian's assassination, he said, when an Australian is spoken of in this way, you could say threatened in this way, a prime minister has to respond, right? And it seems so ironic. And, I remember tweeting to him, well, what about treated in this way? Because that's where we are now, Prime Minister. So we thought we might be getting somewhere with that, pricking his conscience, but then today he might be gone. So too bad.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Kathy. It's really important for us to have Australian voices be a part of the vigil, and I was really pleased to see how many Australian voices we had, particularly in the last vigil. It's been a growing contingent from Aussie, so thank you so much for being a part of that. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. Oh, it looks like we've lost Margaret, but everyone say hi to the lovely, gorgeous Vivian Kubrick, who's here with us. Viv, you are muted though, just be aware of that.
I'm unmuting myself as we speak. I learned from doing the vigil last time where I was crashing around and writing things, and Joe wrote me a little note saying, you're making lots of noise, can you turn your mic off? So now I'm kind of petrified.
You're fine, but do talk up a little bit, because you're actually you're a little bit quiet. Maybe, I don't know if my volume's too low, but you're a little bit quiet.
How's this?
Yeah, okay, cool. But Viv, what's your impressions? We're 4 weeks in. What's your impressions of Unity for J?
Well, first of all, I listened to your entire talk for the last hour plus. And first of all, honestly, Suzie, you are, can I swear, shit hot. I cannot believe how well you've organized Discord. I mean, if some other boffins have secretly been doing this for you, then do tell. But it does seem that...
I've had a lot of help, to be honest. I have an amazing team. I have had a lot of help.
Oh, good. Hey, Margaret's come back if you wanted to. No, but anyway, let me just finish. So first of all, the way you've organized it, how you explained it, you're secretly a genius. I don't know how you put that all together so, I mean, impeccably. It's so well organized, so well thought out. So really, kudos to you, Suzie, and everyone that helped you. It's just awesome. Oh, my ear thing is going in front of the camera. That is really annoying. Listen, there's one thing that I really want to say before anything carries on, because I've had like 2 conversations with really close friends of mine who are not InfoWars people, but very, very left-wing people that are my dear friends. And we got talking about Julian, about how it's really connected to the Russians, and he's just a little worker bee for the I mean, just mad conversations, and how and then I realized, as I was getting more and more heated and saying, but you know, have you listened to William Binney, where he says that they couldn't have possibly downloaded all those files via the internet? It would have had to have been on a thumb drive, you know. And it was like, before I knew it, we were like really getting hot at each other. And then I went, let's stop, right? Because this is the whole plan of the mainstream media and social media, is to get everyone at each other's throats. Very amiable, yes, where human beings are good. Most people are really good, and the information that they get given, they hold close to their hearts, and they worry about it. How's my sound, by the way, Joe?
That's good.
Okay,
they're really good.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm listening to you, but I'm also going through something 400 something minches. So.
No, good. No, don't worry, because I really want to speak about this. Anyway, so people are being set against each other. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind, because I said to my friend, look, either you've got all the right information and I've got all the wrong information, or vice versa. Or we've both got wrong information, or we both don't have any idea of what's really going on. But the one thing that's harming mankind right now is working against each other. And the fact that this movement is a movement of unity, and everybody on this in this group, what we care about is mankind, the truth, and then we're laying down, at least certainly I am, any of my own personal beliefs of how things should be organized or anything else, because without truth and without all of us being for human beings, you know, so that means that you totally 1,000,000,000% support free speech. And that means you're just going to have to suffer people that piss you off, or you're frightened of even. You're going to have to trust that as human beings, we have enough common sense between us all to listen to all the different ideas and be able to pick the ones that are most pro-survival, most sane, most granting beingness to everyone. And right now, I said to, you know, because I called my friend back, because, you know, we were really having a go at each other. And I said, please, I'm so sorry that we got into it like that, because I love you and I know you love me, and this is just terrible that we're at each other's throats, because both of us, because, you know, we wouldn't be friends otherwise, both of us care about human beings, both of us care about the planet, both of us care about Julian Assange, both of us care about free speech and a free press. So I would just like to say, if anyone's watching this and they've been tempted to kind of persuade someone to have a different viewpoint, or if they get very agitated talking to their friends and very upset, you know, because they don't agree with what you agree with, remember that our access to proper information, I would say, is demonstrably dubious. Otherwise we wouldn't be fighting with each other. I mean, I'm serious. My 2 friends are so cool. I love them, and we totally share basic common human, you know, realities. But, you know, they're saying to me that Trump's a psychopath and Hillary was great and Julian Assange is just a little worker bee for the Russians, and the Russians interfered with that. And it's just like, oh my God, everyone just put it down and work towards what really matters, which is our freedom and liberties, and focus all your efforts on making sure we have free speech, that we focus all our efforts on getting Julian Assange out, because he will be a feather in the cap of humanity if we free him, particularly the almost transported beautiful things that Suzie said about, how we can just end Facebook if everyone just goes, fuck you, excuse me, sorry, I do actually secretly swear like a bloody sailor, and I've tried to not on here. It's growing up on film sets. I tell you, anybody who's been on a film set knows that it's like being in the Navy. You've never heard so much swearing. Anyway, so I just what Suzie said is so true. We can change reality. Oh, I've got my thumb stuck in my boot. Hang on a second. Sorry. There we go. Sorry, I'm fiddling with my boot. I'm getting all emotional. But what Suzie said about all of this, we could just end Facebook. We just have to cut, I know it's painful. Like if my Twitter feed was shut down and everything disappeared, I'd be kind of sad. But, bugger it. The important thing is that it is completely within our power. Like I was saying to Suzie when we were talking, if everybody in America put $1 in a crowdfund account, there would be $350 million there. Just $1. And so I think with enough communication, with enough organization, we can affect incredibly beautiful changes, but not if we fall for attacking each other. We've just got to stop that. And in fact, my friend and I, we both just went, we will never be angry with each other again about what we believe. If you love Trump, I don't love Trump, by the way, but if I believe that maybe Trump is making good changes, she's not going to go, Trump is horrible, I hate him. It's like we're going to just calm down and we're going to focus on what matters. Free speech, protecting people who deserve to be protected, like whistleblowers, and being in community, realizing that we're all actually fighting for the same thing, which is freedom and liberty. It's just we're being filled with probably a series of unbelievable psyops. So everyone who's involved in Unity for J, spread the message, man. Let's just give up this left, right, socialist, communist, right wing, 1%ers, 99%ers. Let's just understand that we're fighting for humanity. And that's, I think, what Julian is fighting for. So having just verbal diarrheaed my way through something that I actually feel very passionate about, over to Margaret, Kathy, and Suzie.
I'm just going to poke in there just with something that someone said on Twitter. I'm just going to screen share really fast. It was Isabel. She's actually another amazing contributor to this movement. She said, she's responding to the comment that I made earlier where I said that, I was saying, why hasn't there already been a mass movement in the last 8 years? Why was it always this niche thing that was related when I say it seemed like it was in the privacy activism sphere, I am a privacy activist through and through. That was very much my community and my niche. However, it was not freeing Julian, and it was not freeing Ed or anybody else who is needing to be advocated for and to have a mass movement for him. And Isabella said, no, it was not just a niche movement. It has always been on the edge of a breakthrough, but every attempt has been split with left versus right, men versus women, which is why post-ideology, and I love that, post-ideology and unity is so damn important. And
Mazel tov.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's not to say that we can't have our own ideology. Of course we have our own ideologies, but we shouldn't obsess over our own ideology to the exclusion of all others. And that's my final 2 cents. But please, Margaret, I'm just going to say 2 to you before I let you speak. I was so proud of our interview. I went back and watched it from the last vigil, and I was so proud of it. And some very, very, very cool people who shall remain nameless, who actually have been big fans of your work for a long time and even originally put me on to your work. They also saw that interview and they are very proud of both you and me. It was really special hour. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for being here with us. And you're muted, by the way, Margaret. I unmuted you. Welcome to the stream.
Unmuted. Okay. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's beautiful to see you.
It's great to see you too, and to meet the other. Oh, it's all women. It's all chicks. That's great.
Yeah.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
It's very special to be a part of this this worldwide movement, and it is obviously focused on Julian Assange, focused on this one person, but people all over the world are supporting him because he is fighting for us, for human rights all over the world. It's interesting hearing what Vivian had to say. I'm sorry, the police sirens right outside my window. Hope you couldn't hear it too badly. But anyway.
You're in New York. You're in New York.
I am in New York City. But it can be difficult to, even in our personal relationships with friends, with family, to talk about political issues. And this is a political issue, Julian's imprisonment. But it's difficult because of propaganda, because it's so pervasive, because any counter narrative has been disappeared. Here in the United States, where we constantly hear about Russiagate, the corporate media, even the New York Times, the Washington Post, who we're supposed to respect because they're, real media, they tell lies constantly about any number of things, and they disappear the counter narrative. There are people who, speaking of Russia, who are experts on Russian history, Russian foreign policy, who speak the language, who lived in Russia, and they are disappeared. They're not allowed on television. They don't get the op-ed in the big newspapers. So we have a situation where we try to speak to people who literally don't know what we know. And we're not better or smarter. We have made this choice, this decision to seek out other sources of information. And it's very difficult when we talk to most people who have not had that exposure. But it's something we must work through, and each of us in our own way have to find ways to reach people. You don't want to antagonize people because then they won't listen to you at all. But at the same time, we don't want to stop saying what we're saying. We're doing it because we believe in it. And it's important for people to speak for Julian and to speak for what he stands for, because that is under attack by very, very powerful people. He hasn't been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy for nothing. The British government, the United States government have made it their business to keep him there or to snatch him if he leaves. And so that's something we can't shrink from saying. And I don't have an answer about always how to address those issues, but I think we all have to find a balance between saying what we believe, what we're obviously passionate about. We wouldn't be here if we weren't. And at the same time, functioning in the world with people we care about, or people we want to be in contact with people we need as human beings. So it's tough. But I think this is a moment, we're in a very special moment, and I think it will be for good and bad reasons. Julian fought for us to have information, and these same forces who wanted to keep him from giving us information have not let up. Russiagate is being used to censor the left. We talked about Alex Jones. I think the censoring of Alex Jones is a cover to censor the left and to get people to start accepting. Today, Google announced they had shut down 12 YouTube sites because they said it was Iranian propaganda. Facebook has done the same thing. We don't know who these sites are, who runs them, what they said. They don't give us an opportunity to decide for ourselves. So at the same time that people like ourselves are speaking up, there are people who are opposing us. But I'm ready for the fight, and I guess we all are as well.
Well, they might be opposing us, but there's definitely fewer of them than there is of us.
Absolutely. We're the majority. We're the 99%.
I had this absolutely fantastic quote brought to my attention today too, which I'll just share screen and show you guys. We will work to be an example of how we as brothers and sisters on this earth should treat each other. Now more than ever, the illusions of division threaten our very existence. We all know the truth. More connects us than separates us. But in times of crisis, the wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers. We must find a way to look after one another as if we were one single tribe. And that's T'Challa from the Black Panthers. I think that is the most absolutely spot on quote.
Yes.
And I was so pleased.
Can you tweet that out?
Yeah, sure. I already tweeted it today, but I'll retweet on it again now, so it'll be at the top of my timeline. And that was shared by OccuWorld, which is one of the most old school Occupy Wall Street accounts. Is still to this day sharing movement information for the 99%. But I love that the wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers.
That's. I think that's always been the case, and I don't think it's an accident that powerful people want to erect barriers. You know, our President Trump, there is already, by the way, a wall on the border of Mexico. I don't know what kind of extra super duper wall he wants. People all over the world whose nations have been impoverished, who want to go and live and work, being treated terribly here in the United States, all over the world, in the UK, in Canada. I could go on. Israel snatches the wages of African migrants. So those are barriers that are used. We need to get rid of borders. We need to get rid of those literal barriers. And we need to always fight, and it is a fight, to make sure that we can speak to one another. But there are people who don't want that, so we have to ask ourselves why. And I think it's funny. It may be simplistic, but there's certain organizations and individuals, whatever they want. I'm assuming the opposite is what I should be working for. So the corporate media in this country are two political parties, the war party duopoly. Whatever they want, I don't want. Whatever they say is bad, I'm sure is good. If they say it's good, I think it's bad. And while it may seem simplistic, I think 90% of the time we're right. And the fact that they want barriers should tell us that we should be working for more connection.
Let's just have a little think too about who do the borders apply to? Who do the barriers apply to? Do the borders apply to the US when they want to invade Afghanistan, when they want to invade Iraq? No, all of a sudden the borders don't mean anything. There are no borders, there are no barriers. When they want to spend $280 million, or was it billion, God knows how much, to build a new drone base in West Africa now, which I know from studying the Snowden documents, they explicitly state that their interest in the Niger was to, direct quote, secure an unimpeded flow of oil to the US and its allies. No border problems there, no barriers there for them. The borders and the barriers exist for us. They do not exist for the transnational corporations. They do not exist for the 1%. They could give a toss less about borders or barriers. They will trample them at a moment's notice and feel fully entitled to do so. And this actually brings me back to something. There's currently one of the ways that activists are being financially persecuted, including myself, and have been for years now, is under the cover of what's called anti-money laundering legislation, which is known as AML legislation. It is literally a cover to financially persecute people that they do not like. And under that legislation in New Zealand, they made it that you can't transfer $10,000 without being flagged to be examined by them. Now they've reduced that to $1,000. You can't transfer $1,000 without being flagged to be studied by these AML teams. And yet they managed to sell $1 billion worth of arms with absolutely no problems. They managed to move billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, with absolutely no problem. They managed to commit egregious crimes and move vast sums of money in and out of tax havens, in and out of Swiss bank accounts, no problem. But my mum can't send me $1,000 without a financial transaction being flagged, and the New Zealand Police anti-money laundering team at our bank going and sniffing around our transactions under the guise of anti-money laundering. So this is where financial barriers and financial borders exist only for the 99%. They do not exist for the arms salesmen, for the drug traffickers, for the people moving billions of dollars.
Absolutely. We, here in the United States, corporations claim personhood, corporate personhood. On the one hand, they have more rights than the rest of us, but then when we try to regulate them, they claim to be people. The same as you mentioned in your country, in the United States, I think it's $10,000 or, now you need an identification to do anything. You need an identification to send a FedEx. You can't deposit money in your own bank account without showing ID. You can't deposit money into someone else's account, a sibling, your spouse. And that, as you were saying, the worst transgression, obviously, is warfare. So the laws don't amount to anything for them. They can decide to invade a country. Even if Russia meddled in the US election, they still have not interfered with other countries as much as the United States has. And other countries interfere quite openly. Israel and Saudi Arabia interfere in American politics very openly. So the rules that they lay down for us never apply to them, whether it's a border, whether it's money, whether it's a law. We live here in the United States. We have more people incarcerated than any country in the world. More than 2 million people, the greatest number and the country with the greatest percentage of its people incarcerated. So all talk of human rights is a lie. All talk of there's no boundary when the police state wants to get you. So yes, you're absolutely right. Whatever they say about anything does not apply equally. Some are more equal than others. I guess that's it.
Very much, and also I feel like there are two ties that bind this movement, and no matter what ideology, whether it's left, right, or anything. The first I said was empathy. It absolutely is empathy for the plight of Julian Assange. It is being able to feel how wrong what is being done to him is, and that empathy is what compels us to action. Sorry, Kathy's trying to say goodbye.
Goodbye. Nice to
Bye, Kathy.
Sort of.
Hang on, just let me hit cancel. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'll be tweeting about what goes down here and any new strategies that we can employ to make support for Julian grow in Australia. It's very important here.
Thank you so much. How awesome that we've had 3 continents here just tonight in this chat. It's amazing. So the first tie was empathy, but the second tie is anti-war. And that is our so-called right-wingers and our so-called left-wingers that are involved in this movement are all anti-war. And Julian is fiercely anti-war. And WikiLeaks is, in fact, not only are they fiercely anti-war, but this is the pinnacle of their mission, is to bring transparency, to prevent these crimes at mass scale that are perpetrated against entire populations. And so,
can I just interject something? I think obviously there are spiritual matters here. At least for many people, I'm sure, watching this are aware of the fact that awareness and levels of consciousness are at play here. because I'm convinced that everybody in the Unity for J movement and everybody that supports WikiLeaks has a very different level of consciousness than, for instance, the gangsters and the cartels that run this planet. And I think everything that you were saying, Margaret, about the injustice and why do there have to be borders? Why can't we all just commune on this planet as a group of loving humans? And I say, mazel tov to that. However, what we are experiencing is what happens when very well-meaning, human beings just get on with their lives, but they don't inject their power into society, because they get on with their lives, they get a job, they love their children, they do their art, they do their whatever they're doing, but they don't inject themselves into power. Instead, they think that they're involved in powerful decisions because they go through, like in America, I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's just this charade that happens every 4 years. Mm-hmm. And basically nobody gets to really change anything. And I think that's why Trump is getting a lot of heat. Whatever you think about him as a human being, he is trying to change things. And oh, hello, Joe. I see Joe Laurie.
Hi, Joe.
Anyway, I'm just going to quickly finish this. So I just think that if we really want things to change, and Margaret, I think it's a beautiful idea to not have borders and to be together on this planet and, live in peace. However, while we still have human beings that are a level of awareness and consciousness where they think that it's actually right to go for it for yourself, and if somebody gets in your way, you just step on their head, what are we going to do with those beings? We can't just sort of invite angelic celestial creatures to come down and take them off the planet and go and put them on their own planet where they can all,
It would be nice, wouldn't it? I think they used to call that Australia. Sorry, I couldn't resist. The poor Aborigines getting stuck with them.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing that's so important, Margaret, about what you said is that in order to achieve that, everybody has to get involved. And unfortunately, most people, like I was saying in that Aristotle quote that I love, is that they deliberately make everyone's life so bloody busy, either with distractions or they have to have 3 jobs to function. You just cut away their ability to be involved in power. And what WikiLeaks has done in Julian, and what I hope that many people who begin to, which is why this movement is so important, Suzie, is that at the actual foundation of society are all these people who are holding up power. Like if the police, the military, all the bureaucrats, everybody who does all the IT for all the corporations, if they were aware of their power and they felt free and understood who they could go to report on completely illegal things, like go to WikiLeaks, then we would be able to inject our sanity, our good will towards others. And, the fact is, you look at someone like Harvey Weinstein or, people that I know in the film industry who are absolute gangsters, right? They didn't get there because they were loving on people. They got there because they absolutely stabbed their way to the top. And, I just think that
it's like a professional colonialism. Because, I mean, this is the same thing. Yeah. Like, colonialism just had no respect for borders or barriers either. It's total disrespect for borders and barriers and for the rights of Indigenous peoples. And had no compunction whatsoever about imposing themselves in every way possible on a civilian population. Yet again, we see, I'm thinking of the Maori community in New Zealand, that there were intense social barriers put into place on the Maori people, on the Maori population. that never applied to the colonialists ever. Everything from education to where they could physically live, to how they could live, to how they could, what they could, language they could speak. There were social barriers everywhere constructed around them to confine them, and yet colonialism had absolutely no such barriers or borders in place, no respect for barriers or borders. So I see this as in the sense of exactly what you were just saying. What do we do with these people who aren't on the same wavelength? I feel like they're like, you're talking even about Harvey Weinstein. This is like the professional, the film industry colonialist mentality of just coming and steamrolling over everything, taking everything you can, and not giving a toss about anybody else.
Well, and actually, as far as artists are concerned, they suffer the same hardships as one of the inhabitants of a colonial empire, is that you just have no power. And I would say that my main point, and then I'm gonna let Joe, who's been sitting there very patiently, have his turn. But I just think that people really need to understand that they have the power to change our reality, but they have to inject themselves into that reality. And they have to do what Margaret was saying, which is you need to look further than just your local newspaper or the mainstream media for the truth, because it's not there. I mean, that is the mouthpiece of power. And, that was actually, there's two friends that I was talking about. One of them said, no, Trump is attacking mainstream media. He's attacking free speech. He's attacking the free press. And I was just like going, where do I begin? And I said, well, they're owned by 6 corporations. That Obama in 2013 gave I don't know whether it was just he repealed something or changed something, but some law.
As far back as Clinton. As far back as Clinton was allowing the acquisitions and mergers. That's where it began, the consolidation of the media properties into the
No, what I'm talking about is that he made it legal. In other words,
to propagandize the domestic population. Correct.
Hello. So I said that to my friend, and it was like as if she was going la 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 la. She just would not have it from me. So I think all the goodness that's in people is being so cruelly manipulated so that their best intentions are being, hello, welcome to the world of psyops. So anyway, I'm going to shut up. And Joe, hi.
I'm going to introduce Joe in the context of our upcoming vigils, but it's the political tribalism is what you're seeing the effect of, which is where people are taught two things. One, that they can only believe one way or the other way. They can't. Right. They don't know how to cherry pick the correct parts from both sides and to discard the misinformation on both sides. But they also have been taught that there is a social cost and a social price to daring to dissent against their own socio-political affiliations. And we see this even in the activism sphere. We see this, to be honest with you, but certainly in the population at large. People are being taught you must be one side or the other side, and that's why it's divide and conquer, because that's how they suppress the power of all of us by pigeonholing us in these things.
Right. So your movement, Suzie, is when you said that you hope that it will blossom out into other activities and helping other people, I also hope that it really blossoms out into this very fundamental thing. We are human beings for human beings, which means we are together taking care of our freedoms and our liberties. And screw all of this. Do you support Trump or Hillary bloody psychopath Clinton? So excuse me, my own little... Anyway, look, I'm just looking at her as one of the gangsters. And that's what I think people need to focus on, is who is doing what and what are the consequences. Not bullshit, oh my God, I'm just never going to shut up.
Look, it really is competing. I mean, I've said for a long time, it's like competing mafia families. I mean, I don't.
Totally.
It is, absolutely. We've had, Trump has proven you can get away with anything if you have good manners and if you speak well. I mean, if you look at the terrible things that Clinton and Obama got away with, I mean, my God, Clinton, everything from a couple of days ago was the anniversary. He bombed a pharmaceutical plant in Sudan and claimed it was a chemical weapons plant. The consolidation of the media that we just talked about, the destruction of Yugoslavia, Obama, the destruction of Libya, the attempt to destroy Syria. I mean, I could go on and on, but if you use the right knife and fork and high IQ, nobody cares what you do. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, Trump, look at Trump. He says terrible things about the media, but the New York Times hasn't shut down. The networks haven't shut down. His words have not harmed the media at all, but they were in cahoots. They're in cahoots with any president who curries favor with them. And if Trump was smarter and curried favor, they'd go along with him too. And you wouldn't hear a thing about they tell you that separating immigrant families from their kids was fine. They'd find a way to defend him if he went along with them. So that's my 2 cents before.
Spot on. Okay, I'm going to welcome to the stream Joe Laurie is the editor-in-chief of the incredible Consortium News. If there is a website, actually, I mean, let's be fair, there are multiple websites you should be reading. You can pretty much get a whole catalogue of them from propornot.com. If you go there and you read through the list and just bookmark all of them, you'll be on your way to distancing yourself from the corporate propaganda. On that, I believe on Prop or Not, you'll find both blackagendareport.com, which Margaret is a senior editor for, and also consortiumnews.com, which Joe Laurie is the editor-in-chief of. Joe has come to the stream not just because he's a friend of this movement and supporter of this movement, but also because, Joe, the time has come to unveil the new format that we are developing for I'll just give the spoiler alert, the notices won't be going out until tomorrow, actually. The comms team's doing the press release tomorrow, but on the 1st of September will be the next vigil, first day of the first weekend of September, for Unity for J, and Joe will be coordinating that vigil on my behalf. And Joe, why don't you tell us, try and give us everything. Why do you support Julian? Why do you love Unity for J? And tell us a bit about what you're doing for us next.
Okay, well, very interesting conversation. Thank you. Hello to everyone, to Margaret, to Vivian. I think I was on mute when I tried to say hello earlier, so.
Hi.
Hello. I learned of a lot of good websites. I discovered many from that Prop or Not list, so it was extremely useful. I agree. There was some that I didn't know existed before, so I have to thank them for that, putting that list together. By the way, that Sudan aspirin factory that Margaret referred to, that's what they were making, their aspirin, not chemical weapons. It happened during the lead up to Clinton's impeachment. Mm-hmm. So I hope there's not an incentive being created now for Trump to start bombing someone to take the heat off for a while. On the very day that they were going to impeach Clinton, he bombed Iraq and delayed it by a day, if you all remember that. Trump says the media is the enemy of the people. I don't agree with his reasons for saying that, but I agree with that they are the enemy of the people for the reasons that we all have been discussing here. He's the enemy because they attack him. And it's all about Trump, let's face it, for Trump, okay? So what we're going to do, and I'm really excited about this new format that Suzie has thought up. Normally we have people being interviewed for 1 hour each. You've all seen that. You've been part of it, obviously, the vigils. It's been a 1 hour interview with the same interviewer interviewing each person over a number of hours, and then maybe another person takes over. There've been 2 or 3 people doing, mostly Suzie and Elizabeth Voss have been doing the interviews. What we're going to do now is have only one day, and we're going to have 1 hour for each speaker. However, for example, I will interview Margaret, let's say, for half an hour to start the vigil. And then I will fade away into the background, and Margaret will interview the next guest coming up, Vivian.
Mm-hmm. Hi.
And then that half hour is over. Vivian will interview John Pilger, let's say, for half an hour. And then Pilger will interview Chris Hedges for a half an hour. In other words, it's going to be a tag team type of thing. So we've got two different people on the screen all the time, or at least one different person, and the interaction between them could be quite interesting. And it relieves the burden of the organizers to have someone there all the time to do all the interviews, and gets interaction from interesting people. So
I think that's a brilliant idea. I love that.
I bumped into Max Blumenthal yesterday or the day before yesterday, and I told him about this, and he wants to do it. He wants to interview. Write this down, Susie. He wants to interview Pilger. Sorry, I mentioned that after you, Vivian. He wants to interview Pilger. He'll do it if he can get to interview Pilger. So I think that's going to be a great idea. So I'm really excited about doing that. The hard part is going to be getting people on board and then organizing the schedule, and that's something that Susie's people graciously said they would do. At least Suzie said they would do, and so that we can arrange who will interview whom over the course of 12 hours or so. We could have 24 people involved, and each one would still be only giving up an hour, but they only have to be interviewed for half an hour, and then they will interview the next person for half an hour. I think that's going to be quite an interesting thing, and I think 12 hours might be a good short amount of time to see if this works, because it's not been done before. But I think it's brilliant. So
I think that's a beautiful way of creating dialogue. I think that's quite an inspired and unique platform.
And many of the people we're interviewing are journalists themselves, so they know a thing or two about interviewing people. So they could easily take over and pick the brain of the next person, and then vice versa down the line.
Don't say that, Joe. You're making it feel more intimidating for me.
What do you mean?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sure you'd have some good questions for people.
Thanks. Anyway, actually, I just wanted to say, Joe, I followed Consortium News for a very long time, and I was so sad when Robert passed. But I must say, you guys have really kept going really powerfully. And I think for anybody who hasn't checked out Consortium News, it's probably, it's a mixture. Everyone has sort of different opinions, but it's really, I think, a very balanced and sane source of news. I certainly go to Consortium News.
Well, thank you. I hope you say that when you're live on the air on September 1st. Because most of us already know that. But no, I'm joking. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to provide news that corporate media ignores, or certainly if they cover it, we're giving a different angle.
Yeah.
We have a very small operation. I've just hired, and I haven't announced it yet, but we've just hired a managing editor. It's Eric Ortiz, who was the managing editor of Truthdig. He's now our managing editor, only half-time. Unfortunately, I wanted him full-time. So we're going to try to get more stories out more quickly. It's quite a lot to do for one person, basically, to run that entire site. It's been a very strenuous 6 months. To follow Bob Perry is impossible, of course, but we're trying to keep that alive, what he created. And I appreciate you liking that. Now, your father was born in the Bronx, wasn't he?
He was, yes.
I'm from the Bronx. That's why I wanted to ask you. And how did you ever live in the Bronx? Yeah.
No, I did live in Manhattan as a little kid, and I also lived there as an adult. But no, he lived on Grand Concourse.
Okay, all right, sure. Okay,
his parents, they were children just as their parents escaped the pogroms in Russia, and they went through Ellis Island, and then my grandparents were born in the Lower East Side of New York at about 1904 or something like that.
That was the path. Ellis Island to Lower East Side to the Grand Concourse. Going up to the Grand Concourse was really moving up in the world at that time.
Yes.
For many people from the Lower East Side. In fact, the entire Grand Concourse was almost exclusively by Lower East Side folks, getting out of those cramped tenements into these beautiful Art Deco buildings as they were when they were first built. You've been to the Grand Concourse, I hope.
Yes, I went there in the 1980s, where it was sort of like
it's quite a different at that time, particularly.
Yeah,
but it was a beautiful place at that time. So I just
actually, it wasn't that different. My grandfather was a doctor, and he had to sit in his office with a loaded gun at all times in case patients came in and said, "My son, he died. I kill you." So it's like,
that was back when in the 40s. You're talking the 50s?
No, in the 20s.
In the 20s.
20s and 30s. Yeah, he was a doctor.
Well, that's interesting. With a loaded gun.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe that's the next after Betsy DeVos arms all the teachers. Now they're going to try to arm all the doctors.
Oh God! Did you guys see that? I think was it Sacha Baron Cohen like dressed up as some like rabid Israeli arms dealer or something ridiculous and interviewed one of the congressman or senator in the US about why they should be giving arms training to 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds.
Yes.
Because they specifically stated because they didn't have the like cognitive processing or awareness to understand the extent of their actions, and therefore were the most powerful warriors. God, it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and the senator went along with it.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. I missed this.
Yeah, he dressed up as a former Mossad agent. He got Dick Cheney to believe that he was a former Mossad agent, and presented him with a waterboarding kit, personally from Israel. The idea was that they all agreed with the insanity that he was spewing about the need for torture and arming children.
Sorry, wait, I'm lost. Who are you talking about?
Sacha Baron Cohen, the comedian.
Right. Oh God.
He set up these US hardcore right-wing US senators who like were NRA affiliated people or whatever. And not at all to disparage the genuine Second Amendment concerns that some people have. These guys were actually nuts, and they were, in my opinion, but his whole was that these were senators that were very had an affinity, shall we say, and or financial connections to the Israeli government, and therefore when they considered Sacha Baron Cohen in his disguise or whatever to be an emissary of Israeli interests, we're quite happy to sit there and talk with him about how they should introduce legislation to train toddlers in arms, weaponry.
Well, that may have been outlandish, but we talked about Hollywood, and Mossad agents have run movie studios, and Harvey Weinstein silenced one of his accusers with a spy agency run by former Mossad agents. So, and that's the influence, some of the influence that I was talking about earlier.
Actually, I'd like to just inject something here, a bit of reality from the world of show business. My father actually received a lot of death threats throughout his career. And yeah, I mean, serious death threats. And at each moment when he called for help to the British police or Scotland Yard, they said, well, I'm afraid you're going to have to wait till somebody's actually standing there with a gun trying to shoot you. And so what was he supposed to do? So, okay, I'm being edited by my mother in my own head right now. Anyway, suffice to say, he had to do something for himself to protect himself. And at another period when we were on Barry Lyndon, as a manager, a production manager, had it out with the IRA, who are basically like, they run the unions in Ireland. And so the IRA were really pissed off. They put a bomb on the set and they chased us out of Ireland. And I lived for 3 months in a motel room with my sisters, not able to go anywhere because they threatened to kidnap us. So it's like the reality of show business. I would say that if any group of people actually need to be personally armed, sometimes it's artists. I mean, how crazy is that? But I also want to say, having come from a Jewish background and my family left because of pogroms, I really think that the Second Amendment is incredibly important for a doomsday scenario. I'm not saying that, everyone should be out on the street, shooting someone if they think something's happening. I just think it's very, very important. I've watched too many documentaries on the Holocaust to not realize that if the Jews had had guns, there would have been less of them that would have died. So suffice it to say, when you do research and you study history, and in my case, you have your own personal experience, you begin to have a different concept of what guns are for. And I would just like to say that at this level of evolution on the planet as beings, you know, very, very, very sadly, you kind of need a gun sometimes. Anyway, I just wanted to inject that bit of reality.
Well, you know, it's funny though, in American history, the Black Panther Party was the Black Panther Party for self-defense. And they argued that Black people had a right to protect themselves from the police. But what were we talking about before? The rules don't apply to everybody or don't apply equally. And when Black people organized for a right to be armed, they were crushed very violently. So you have a good point, but that's one of the hypocrisies of life in America, about this supposed right that only some people have, and then other people don't have it.
And we can't tell that aspect of the Black Panther movement without pointing out that the FBI were involved in actively arming the Black Panther movement to create that exact pretext where they would be able to then come down on them like a ton of bricks.
Absolutely. All kinds of evil infiltrating and causing dissension and out killing people, getting people to kill one another. And, you know, when we talked about people not using their power, and one of the reasons people don't is those that do are made an example of. I mean, we're here talking about Julian Assange. I mean, what did he do? He just wanted people to have information. That's all. And he suffered because of it. And people see that those who, what is it, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. I mean, that's certainly, that's why we're all here. But we're the nails that stick up, and we want to keep doing it.
It's true. It's true that you can be targeted as an individual for standing up and for making that moral and ethical choice. But it's also true that when you do, you inevitably inspire other people to rise up as well. And that's why it is incredibly important that we continue to do so, and incredibly important. Like, I just always come back to Bob Marley. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? This is exactly the situation. I am not prepared to stand aside and look while they do this to Julian Assange.
Absolutely.
Suzie, do you, sorry.
For this movement. Go ahead.
I joined late. Do you have any updates on what's going on in London?
No. Look, this is the $1 million question. What I can tell you, I said right at the beginning of the stream, the good news is that he hasn't been evicted. He has not been handed over. The bad news is that he is still physically suffering every single day, still arbitrarily detained and still silenced.
Do you think, you have any idea if he was aware of that demonstration that took place outside the embassy about a week ago?
He is aware of the support for him that is present outside at the embassy. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, great. That's great.
He's aware of the Unity for J movement. He's aware of this growing groundswell of support for him. And his mother, Christine, has said that it's a huge comfort to him to know that increasing numbers of people are standing up, rising up for him.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
Actually, I just wanted to add another aspect to Unity while we're here, is that artists have been just as crushed in terms of their free expression as everything else in our society. And, you know, although I enjoy a lot of the stuff that comes out on TV or something like that, you know, in terms of the actual intellectual, you know, quality of most films, art, book, music, whatever, that's also been commandeered by the same forces that manipulate the news. And to a very great extent, I feel that mankind is being like stunted by this throttle hold that they have on real artists. And, you know, when I mentioned my father receiving death threats, he also, you know, he was very, very much, how should I put it? I think he came in just at the sort of tail end of where the real kind of cultural crush came down on art. Because, you know, with a few exceptions, most of the stuff being produced in music, in literature, in films, on TV, that's just as mind-alteringly disruptive and toxic as the news is. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that spin in that, you know, there's much that's being suppressed in the world right now. And I think artists make a very important contribution if they're able to make a contribution.
Vivian, you're such a good friend of mine, and yet I feel a bit silly sometimes because I'm not much of a film buff. I haven't seen many of your dad's films, and you must get sick of people talking about your dad to a certain extent too. Tell me this, because I have a very rudimentary understanding of his work. Were your dad's films fiercely anti-war? I know they were anti-nuclear in some respect, but anti-war.
Yes, they were anti-war. Paths of Glory certainly was his first effort at addressing the sheer outrageousness of the trench war, the First World War. And, you know, I mean, look, Full Metal Jacket, I think also made the point in various scenes. I mean, if you ever watch it, you'll see that I think Full Metal Jacket makes some very important observations also about the training, the brutality of the training to just dehumanize the soldiers. And then at the same time, I don't want to ruin it for you if you should see it, but, you know, I think that there's no question my father felt very kind of conflicted, because I think he realized, just as I said to you, that we live on a planet where, you know, you can't just sort of pretend that there aren't other beings who are quite happily. In fact, I keep getting this image of the ape in 2001 discovering that he can like smash things with this bone. You know, whatever that defining moment came for mankind, where he went, wait a minute, I can cut out all this bullshit and just clobber them on the head. You know, that moment is, we're still there struggling with that. And I think anti-war is simply acknowledging that you've gone to the absolute bottom of communication. Like when you fight and you try and discuss, but you don't listen, and then you just continue to fight, and then maybe even some people might throw something at someone or hit them or whatever, you're watching a kind of a deafness and a deadness begin to enter into human relations. So obviously war is an expression of the lowest form of communication human beings can have with each other. And that is obviously why a movement like this is such a beautiful premise. We're saying, let's join together as human beings, no matter what our viewpoints are, to defend human beings and to honor truth and to listen to each other and worry about, you know, the right things. And so anyway, sorry, I've gone on a great big long.
No, that's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm looking at the comments in chat right now, and somebody says a Full Metal Jacket was the first time that they saw what war really was, and it woke them up. And someone else says, Full Metal Jacket, I tell anyone who's thinking of joining the military to watch that film. And
my light just went out, sorry.
I could say as an older person that Paths of Glory is I think maybe the first film that showed me what war was about.
Yeah, I mean,
great film.
Yeah, I think, as I say though, I think my father was very conflicted, because he also understood that there are certain situations where the people that you're up against are so, you know, their consciousness is so incredibly compromised that you have to defend yourself. And I think that there are other ways of defending yourself, but sometimes there is no other way. As Margaret was saying, you know, the Black Panthers were acknowledging the fact that for God's sakes, everyone knows there were lynchings. Everybody knows there were the most horrible violence perpetrated against Black people, you know, for, you know, hundreds of years in America. And to pretend that to be a Black person isn't scary sometimes is just, I mean, it means that you've got absolutely no concept of reality, because it was very dangerous for Black people. I think now that issue may be being part of the manipulation and trying to create division. I mean, this is where I just think that everybody should just look at each other as human beings and, you know, love one another, listen to each other, and understand that we are together trying to confront these gangster criminal cartels that run this planet. And like I said, until we get divine celestial beings coming down to planet Earth and like picking them off one by one and putting them somewhere they can sort themselves out, you know, we've got to face that. But I think let us, at least in these things, understand we're together. We're not at it, you know. Anyway, sorry.
Here's just a couple more pieces of feedback for you, Vivian. Christian says, from someone who is a veteran in their family that still suffers from the horrors of war, thank God for artists like your father, Vivian, who spoke out against war through their work. And
yes.
Somebody else, Dominic, says, as a USMC Vietnam vet, that it was the most realistic movie that they've seen.
Good. I'm glad that they, I mean, look, it was my father's most successful film. And I you know, I think that the reality, I mean, look, the Vietnam War was the first war that ever got the kind of coverage that it got on the TV. And so I think it was the first time human beings really in a large group were confronted with the realities of it, which of course it wasn't really terribly real because it was all stars and stripes, you know, sort of propaganda. But enough people came back and suffered. But look, I am just the worst chatterbox and I'm going to shut up.
I love her chatterboxing. And while I haven't seen Full Metal Jacket, I have listened to the soundtrack. And the soundtrack was phenomenal. And
thank you very much.
Who was responsible for the phenomenal soundtrack? Ironic that I haven't seen the movie, but I sit there and listen to the music. It's so typical of me, actually. And the music was by Ms. Vivian Kubrick.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I must tell you something very funny, just as a woman, because in those days there were like no women composers. Like maybe there was one. And the first day that I went in to record something, it was the one bit where it's just this sound that goes, you know, whatever. And it was actually Hans Zimmer, who's like the big Hollywood composer. Sorry, it seems to be weird things going on with my lights. He was there and he was telling the guys to like get the sounds up, and they said, oh, there's nothing on this disc. And I said, really? Oh my God, you know, because this was my first recording session. And they said, yeah, there's nothing. And I said, no, look. And I pointed at this one note that was on the page, and Hans Zimmer said, let's get that one note up on the board. You know, so it was sort of like, oh God, they think I'm a complete idiot, you know, and it's true, it was just one note, but you know, that's what I've written. But I just think that there is a lot that's in the world that needs changing, and certainly women artists don't get much of a look in, and certainly women directors get almost no look in. But anyway, I'm just going all over the place on this.
That's all right. We've gone pretty far from Unity for Jay and Julian.
We have.
I still think it's pretty fascinating for people, and I think it'd be actually very fascinating for Julian to sit here and watch this conversation one day. Okay, guys, yes. I'm gonna wrap it. Any final thoughts from each of you that you would like to share?
This has been a wonderful experience. It's ironic that we've been brought together by this terrible injustice, but that often happens in history. And I look forward to building bridges with all of you and others.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Thank you. Thank you for
that.
gracing us with your presence. Thank you. You are really one of the most authentic voices out there. I greatly appreciate it. I could never have imagined that I would end up on a stream with you, or Joe, or Vivian. I'm very, very blessed. Very blessed.
Likewise, Joe? Suzie.
Whatever.
I met Joe. I would like to meet Suzie and Vivian too. So let's put that out in the universe.
How I made it from the slums of Beach Haven in Auckland to here talking to you guys, I don't know, honestly, but it's nothing short of a miracle, and I'm very lucky, very lucky.
I think we're all trying to politely wait for Joe.
Joe, wrap it for us.
I was seconding what Margaret said. Yes, I did know this was a public forum because I wanted to ask you, Suzie, about some technical thing about setting this up. So we'll do that offline. But I'm looking forward to doing the September 1st vigil. I hope that a lot of people watch it, and I hope this new system we have is going to be popular. And I was very heartened to hear from you, Suzie, that Julian can hear people outside the embassy, and he knows what we're doing here, and that's got to be uplifting for him and the situation he's in. So that, and even if that's the only difference we're making, and I think we're trying to make a much bigger one, that's an accomplishment in itself. So I just thank you for bringing me on board in this, and I think it's a great thing that you've created here. So thank you.
I second that. Incredible.
For me, it kind of feels just like I'm doing what I've been doing for the last 7 years. I'm just, I think, doing it more visibly and on a larger scale, because it's very much, I'm just recycling exactly the same type of work that we did in the GCSB movement and the movement against the TPP in New Zealand. This is, yeah, like I said, just the difference is that I've actually been on camera and speaking publicly rather than doing everything in the background. So that's been a change for me, and the scale of it is different, and it being net-centric is different. But at heart, I'm just a journalist who wants to spend 4 months researching a piece and then writing 20,000 words. So I'm quite happy to hand over to Joe and to other people who have much more experience. And I'm really grateful actually for the learning opportunities that I have. And Joe is someone whose brain I would like to pick. I look forward to being able to send my pieces to him and see what he thinks. Not for publishing, but even just for guidance, because Joe is so much more experienced in his field than I may ever be. And Joe is just one of the people like that who has a skill set beyond my dreams, really, and so I feel very, very blessed to be a part of this.
Well, I have a very pickable brain, so please don't hesitate.
I won't. Okay.
We'll talk about that.
I just want to say, Margaret put a little note up saying her laptop restarted, so she tried to say goodbye, but I think it's shut her down or whatever.
Okay. Well, I've got to unfortunately get back to editing a story. So, oh, what a lovely dog you got there.
Oh, I know.
Yes. Hey, hello. Hey.
He's totally asleep. He's trying to fall asleep. Actually, I've got 2 more, but they're there. And here's another one. Oh, wait.
Look at you.
Sorry, I've got dogs all over the couch. Anyway, well, then I shall bid you all good evening, good night, oh dear. And really, really well done, Suzie. Your presentation, by the way, was amazing. How you did that so succinctly, and you made it so inspiring. I am convinced that everyone agrees with me. It really was quite compelling stuff, what you said. And Joe, if you get the chance to listen to it, I really do think, yeah, because Suzie was she had angelic beings working through her. She was really inspired.
Terrific.
Ooh.
That's very kind of you.
No, it's true. It's not kind. It's just true, Suzie. And really, you perhaps are not aware of it. Maybe you don't watch yourself afterwards, but you really do have a beautiful way of expressing yourself and being what's the word? Inspirational to people, which is really what this movement should be about, because Julian is inspiring people to take up the cause of humanity, and taking power to account is one way of putting it, but ultimately what it is it's us taking responsibility for ourselves and for the future of mankind, because unless we do that, we are just going to have more of these bloody gangsters, and I certainly don't want to live like this much longer. I mean, it's bloody miserable to feel so frustrated like this. So, it's an incredible thing you started, Suzie, and you're a wonderful speaker and really inspirational. So Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's just ironic to me because I spent most of my life trying not to speak in public. There was a moment at Occupy Auckland where a really awesome member of our media team put a rocket up me about public speaking, because I would always run away from it. I would give these like grand speeches to our little media team, but I didn't ever want to be in any of the events or on a stage or my name on a poster or anything. I had loathed the idea of it. And I had a moment where he put a rocket up me and he said, "We need you to speak. We need your voice." And that actually stuck with me for a few years, because that was the moment that I started to think, maybe this isn't about me and what I want. Maybe it's not about whether I want to be public speaking or my name on a board or whatever. Maybe I have an obligation to share the information that I have obtained. And one thing I do feel very strongly about that, towards not even so much Unity for J, but actually Decipher You and the hours we put into studying the Snowden files, because the information in those files, and Joe will know actually because I've given him my big lecture about it. He's had a couple of hours of me ranting at him about it. The information in there is so critically important to humanity and has been so profoundly suppressed and downplayed. And when there are issues like that, I find that I can't not speak. I can't silence myself.
Well, I can only say, thank goodness. There's some serious feedback going on. What's
there you
that?
go. I fixed it.
There we go. Yeah, I say just thank God. And I'll tell you something, all of us, I mean, you might say, maybe I've got this wrong, but look, this is the first time in history that I'm aware of anyway, where we've had this way of communicating on such an incredibly grand and instantaneous scale. And to that degree, I feel much more hopeful. It's not like 1860 anymore. You know, we actually can do things in a very speedy way, which is why it's extremely disturbing that Google has, you know, actually, I wanted to just quickly say, I was listening to InfoWars. I know everyone has a problem about InfoWars, but I can tell you they have great guests. And sometimes, you know, whatever you think of Alex, he actually has some very, very beautiful and solid, good things to say about the world. So I'm just going to give him a little bit of a shout out there. But they actually had two of their journalists put their own shows on a separate personal channel on YouTube, and then Google shut them down and sent them a letter saying that they had shown violence. They had shown actual real news events that were violent. And Google said, we are not allowing people to show violent episodes unless it's actually a documentary. And that's why they shut them down. So I think that's a very, very disturbing thing. I mean, if you want to look, it's on the InfoWars app. But they actually were shut down because Google said they had shown violent events in society where it wasn't a documentary. So that's a very weird and strange reason to
it just comes back to borders and barriers again. I feel like if anything, that was the theme of tonight, and courtesy of Margaret, borders and barriers, because CNN will display God knows what on the news, you know, and they sure as hell are in the documentary. They're as produced and manufactured as it comes. I mean, even these like ISIS beheading videos that they cover and everything else, and what it, you know, I think this is the borders and barriers that they're placing on independent media.
Well, that's I mean, borders and barriers. I understand you want to continue Margaret's theme, but it's just straight up censorship. So, you know, I just think that this is one of the reasons why it's going to be so important to decentralize the web. And I don't technically know how that happens, but I'm sure it must be something like Tor, where individual human beings leave their computers on and things go through them. Isn't that how it works, Joe, if he's still there? No, Joe's gone.
Somewhat.
I'm here, but I've gone back to work. Sorry.
I'm sorry, guys. Let's wrap it because otherwise I'm going to fall asleep in my chair quite quickly.
Oh my God. Okay.
And Joe, I will catch up with you. I want to say tomorrow, but it's actually today already.
Yes, let's talk tomorrow. There's a couple of things to talk about. Okay,
but I'll be in touch once I'm awake.
Yeah.
Vivian, you're always on the other end of my phone. So I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good night. Sleep.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Goodbye,
Good night,
Joe.
Unity.
Bye, Vivian. Bye,
Good
Suzie.
night. Good night, Unity for J Movement. Good night, everybody who has supported this all along, who has been with us for the last 4 weeks. You've been absolutely incredible and amazing. Look what you've produced, and we're going forward to a bright future, hopefully, for Julian, if we all band together and make it happen. So thank you so much. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Good night, everyone. I want my little dog in there. Good night. Good night. Oh, he's not looking now. Good night, everyone. Bye.